In today's video, we're going to do the highlighting guide for the entire Contractors Manual from Chapter 1 until Chapter 10. This video is over 3 hours long. It took me months to make this video and weeks to edit the video, so I hope you guys enjoy. And I want to let you guys know I have finally released my course. If you guys want to get a paper like this that says passed 84% on your first try, I highly recommend taking my course. I cram everything down to show you exactly what you'll see on the test, go over all the math you need to know, and I have over 1,000 practice questions in the test. Right here, I'm going to show you right now what the course looks like, the practice quizzes as well. There's a lot of great information. This is one of the cheapest course out there for business and financing, and I noticed a lot of other schools don't do great with the business and finance, so this is why I made this course. I went through so many courses and I did not like anybody's course. No one gave the right information, and I wanted to give that to you guys in this course. That's why I made this course for you guys. And in this course, it's a community as well. People are talking to each other. People are sharing their past experience as well. That's why it's such a great course. Make sure to sign up for the course down below. And if you guys already purchased another course and you're having issues, you're not liking this, message me. I'll work out a deal so you can get into this course. I already had 5 people pass the exam from this course, and I highly recommend that you purchase a course. It doesn't even have to be mine. I highly recommend mine, of course, because if you have to retake this exam, it costs you about $180 every time you have to retake the exam. So if you have to retake the exam twice, you're paying around $400 to retake the exam. So you might as well just buy a course. If you go through my course, I give you a whole entire study guide of how to study, how to go through the Contractors Manual, how to go through the Builder's Guide to Accounting, how to go through the AIA documents, how to take practice quizzes. So when you go to take your exam, you're gonna pass it the first time and you're well prepared. That's very important. I don't see courses saying, hey, this is how you're gonna study. It's here's the course, good luck. I'm telling you, this is how you're gonna study for the exam so you pass on the first time. And I want you guys to pass on the first time. I want you to get that paper that says pass. I got an 84% on my first try, and I had over an hour left of time. I know a lot of people time out on this quiz, and I'm showing you guys how to study so you don't time out and you pass on the first try. I'm giving you guys a discount because you guys are watching this video. You guys are taking the time to do the highlighting guide. This is over a 3-hour video. So if you use code 50, you'll get $50 off the course. And also, I do sell all of the books as well. If you don't have the Contractors Manual, if you don't have the Builder's Guide to Accounting, I do sell that on my website as well. They're probably some of the best prices for the books. I get them directly from the supplier. They're brand new and they'll ship same day to you guys. Also, freebie for you guys, if you click the link down below, there'll be a 35-question practice quiz for the Contractors Manual. It has questions that are as close to the exam as possible. I wanted to give that to you guys for free. And also, I have a free WhatsApp study group as well. If you want to join that, the phone number is right here. I have this right here in my office. It's the definition of discipline. And if you want to pass this exam, you have to have discipline. You got to study at least an hour a night, and if you do that, you will pass this exam. This exam isn't rocket science, guys. You guys got this, and I'll see you guys in the course, in the WhatsApp study group, and in the next video. Today, we're going to be going over Chapter 1 of the Contractor Manual. I'm going to show you everything that I highlighted. I'll let you know if I saw something that was on my test, so you guys can underline it and highlight it as well. Before we start, I do recommend buying these gel highlighters from Amazon. They're only about $4. These are the ones that I use in this book. You'll see that in this book, some of the highlights that I did were with the regular highlighter, and they just bleed through the pages. Another thing that I did with my book is I put tabs at the bottom. Don't recommend doing that because it's so hard to store now. I can't store it like this anymore because then it will just get it slammed, so I have to store it like that. It's annoying. One thing I also do is I highlight all of my chapters so you can see here. So chapter 1 is highlighted, chapter 2 is highlighted, and I put this little tab as well so I know they're chapters. So this is a chapter, this is a chapter, this is a chapter, this is a chapter. So I do that as well so it's easier for me to scroll through it. So let's get right into chapter 1. Here's chapter 1. In this table of contents, I didn't highlight anything. This one I just kept clean. Some of the other chapters, I do highlight a few things. On page 1.5, we're starting. This is the first highlight I have. Construction is similar to other businesses as it relates to planning, organization, management, and structure. Business plan. Some general guidelines that you can follow when working on your business plans are executive summary, description, research your market, funding, projections. On projections, I have charts and graphs are also good to use in this section. Some questions to consider in this section are, and there's the questions on 1.7, RFPs highlighted first. So if they ask you, what is an RFP? It is request for proposals. Business organization. The details of organizing your construction business entails, but is not limited to name, location, structure, workforce, registration, licenses, regulation, tax, finance, leasing, insurance, record keeping, and advertising and marketing. Page 1.8. The SBA notes that business location has an effect on cost regarding items such as salaries, property values, rental rates, business insurance rates, utilities, and government license and fees. Some locations have incentives such as HUB zones and tax credit for small businesses. The type of business organizations that you select depends partly upon, and then we have these, and then sole proprietorship. So here's an example. They might ask you, what is the simplest form of business organization? And it's right here. A sole proprietorship is the simplest form of business organization. Make sure to highlight that. And who is responsible for decisions in a sole proprietorship? The owner manages the business and is responsible for all decisions. Right here, control of the business as well, it says. Sole proprietorship, you have absolute authority over all business decisions. And it has the advantages and then disadvantages here. One thing they might do is they might ask you, what is an advantage of a sole proprietorship? They will have 4 answers. Sometimes it's 3 of these and all of the above. So just choose all above. Or it will be 3 random ones and then just 1 from the list. So you just got to take a look at this list and see which one is on there or which one is not on there. So there's the disadvantages as well. We're on page 1.9. Partnership. The Florida Uniform Partnership Act defines as a partnership as 2 or more persons associating themselves as co-owners for the purpose of carrying on a business for profit. A partnership agreement should include, these are all the things that it should include in the contract. There are 2 types of partnership recognized in Florida. This is important right here. A general partnership and a limited partnership. General partnership. Each of the partners are fully and personally liable as co-owners of the business. Limited partnership. A limited partnership is kind of like stocks, multiple ownerships. Has 1 or more limited partners. Is immune from liability for partnership debts beyond the amount of his investment. A limited partner cannot be involved in the management or day-to-day operations of the business. The qualifying business cannot be a limited partner. More passive investors always have at least 1 general partner. So a limited partnership always has 1 general partner. Also, if I don't have something highlighted, that doesn't mean it's not important. Sometimes you will have answers to questions that are not highlighted. We're on page 111. This is joint ventures right here. So joint ventures are by the same rules that govern partnerships. Joint venture is usually limited to a single transaction, and control of the business for the joint venture is the same as a partnership. Corporation. The corporate form of business is usually the costliest to organize. So they might ask, what is the costliest to organize for a business? It's the corporate form. And these are the advantages of corporation right there, and these are the disadvantages. And then an S corporation. Provisions allow shareholders to absorb all corporate income or losses as partners and reported as individual taxpayers. In essence, the S corporation is not affected by corporation income tax, thereby eliminating the double taxation feature of standard corporations, the election of S corporation. A corporation must meet certain requirements, and I have this requirement highlighted. 20% or more of its revenue must be domestically generated. Control of the business, you have to have 51%
to have control of the business. So the following below are points to consider and think about regarding your workforce. There, it goes up here too. And then registration. So this is each county requirements to register a business may vary. An occupational license. This is issued by counties and cities. Certificate of occupancy, zoning permits. These are all distributed by your county. This is distributed by the state, Florida General Corporation Act. Fictitious name registration. This is one that they might ask you for. The one that I had in my test was right here. The fictitious name must be advertised, and it will say how many times in a newspaper, and it's one time in a newspaper. And then this is the if change of ownership. Make sure to highlight these ones that I have too. All right, we're going to, this is page 115. DR1 application for certificate of registration, sales tax. You know this probably already, 6% retail sales tax, Department of Revenue. All businesses which collect the sales tax must secure a certificate of registration, sales tax number, from the Department of Revenue. A registration fee is required for Florida business. They might ask you, where do you get a sales tax number from? You get it from the Department of Revenue. Federal tax ID, SS4, EIN number. The form must be filled on or before the 7th day after the date which the business begins. Okay, page 116, I just have this. Qualifying agents, make sure you learn what a qualifying agent is. They will ask that on the test most likely, and you should know what it is already. However, if a partnership, joint venture, corporation, or any other form of business entity proposes to engage in contracting, it must apply to the Federal Department of Professional Regulations through a qualifying agent. I don't have anything highlighted here. And 120. So some principles, duties of an effective and responsible manager include, but are not limited to, planning, organizing, directing, controlling, standardizing, assigning, and communicating effectively. So they might ask you, what are duties of an effective and responsible manager? And you have here, planning, organizing, directing, controlling, standardizing, assigning, and communicating. So right here is dissolution or termination of business organizations. So when a partnership comes to an end, there are basically 3 steps which it goes through. Dissolution, wind up, and termination. Dissolution, wind up, termination. A partnership is also dissolved by any event that makes it unlawful, the death of any partner, bankruptcy of any partner, a court decree under the Partnership Act. Corporate dissolution and liquidation, 2 types of dissolution should be distinguished, voluntary and involuntary. 3 procedures of the voluntary dissolution of a corporation, and then these 3. And then the most important exceptions are right here, 1 and 2. So this one I have underlined in permit of construction of any structure in or across any navigable waters of the U.S. is responsible of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers or the Florida Department of Environmental Regulations. And then right here, state licensing agency. So who distributes the licensing for the construction? It's the Construction Industry License Board. Forms. So I have forms here. So these are all of the pretty much tax forms here. And then workers' compensation as well. And right here I have that highlighted. These. So I just want to show you an example. If you get a question, what is a Form 940? It's an employer's annual unemployment tax return. So if you get a form question, you want to go to your index. Every time I had a form question, I would do this. Go to your index, go to forms, and you have all your forms right here. It even goes on to the next page. So if I want to know what a 940 is, it takes me to 2 pages, 126 and 3181. So I'll go check 126 first. Flip through the book, and I'm going to 126. And right there it tells me what a 4940 is. Here, I don't have anything highlighted. Here. And now we get into chapter 2. So make sure you guys watch the next video for chapter 2. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment down below. And I have a WhatsApp group chat. I have my phone number down below. If you text me on WhatsApp, I'll add you to the group. It's a bunch of people that are taking their contractor's test now. It could be a roofer, contractor, anything that are studying for the test. So it would be good to talk to people that are also taking the test. You guys made it to chapter 2. Keep going. You guys can do this. I believe in you guys. Once again, if you guys study, put the time in, you will pass this exam. This chapter is very important. It's a long chapter. The most important thing about this chapter is the statutes is in this chapter. Another thing that's in this chapter is the violations and citation amounts. Those are very important, and I got multiple questions from there. So let's get right into it and look at all the highlighting that I have. So for the table of contents, I just have public liability insurance highlighted and licensing exemptions and construction contracting. I also have qualifying agents. This is something we talked about in chapter 1. We're going to get more into in chapter 2 here. The second is changes in licensing information. And here are all the statutes. This is very important. So what this book does is in chapter 2, it will go over the main topics of the statutes and kind of simplify it. So this will have all the statutes in the back, the whole entire thing, not just summarized. We're starting at page 2.5. The regulation of profession, in turn, is generally accomplished by licensing. In Florida, most non-medical profession and occupational licensing boards are located within one state agency, the Department of Business and Professional Regulations, known as DPPR. DBPR is very important. You're going to hear a lot about this, so make sure you learn what it is and what they do. The professional boards are made up of primarily of members of the regulated profession, appointed by the governor. The professional boards and not the DPPR make final decisions. So professional boards, not the DPPR, make the final decisions. Investigating complaints, take appropriate disciplinary actions. And then here are the 1 and the 2. So here we go, chapter 489. Chapter 489 Florida statutes provides for the licensure and regulation of all types of contracts in Florida and is divided into 3 parts: construction contracting, electrical and alarm system contracting, and septic tank contracting. Part 1 of Chapter 489 provides for an 18 members of Construction Industry License Board, CILB. This 18 members, make sure to have that in there. The CILB is divided into 2 divisions, Division 1 and Division 2. Part 2 of Chapter 49 provides for an 11 member, and then Chapter 3, Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services. Construction contracting. Generally, any person who for compensation undertake to submit a bid or does himself or by others construction, repair, alter, remodel, add to, demolish, subtract from, or improve any building or structure, including related improvements to real estate for others or for resale to others, must be licensed. The term demolish applies only to demolition of steel tanks, towers, and other structures, not buildings or residencies, over 50 feet in height, and all buildings or residencies. Any person who wants to engage in contracting statewide must establish competency and qualifications to be certified by passing the appropriate examinations. A subcontractor, however, who is not certified or registered may perform construction work under the supervision of a person who is certified or registered, as long as, right here, licensing requirements. So there's 2 types of licensings. There's a certified contractor and a registered contractor. A certified contractor can work anywhere in the state of Florida. If you live in Miami, you can even do work in Orlando, in Orange County. And a registered contractor can only work in a specific county. You can be registered only in Dade County and can only work in Dade County. Everyone should become a certified contractor so you can work the whole state of Florida. I don't know who would do a registered contractor to be only work in one county. Certified construction contractors. To be able to take an examination for certification, an applicant must, and this has everything that they need right here. You should already know all of this. I already knew all of this even before I even started studying for this test. Make sure you know all of this as well, because you need to know all of this when you're applying to get your license. If you don't meet these qualifications, you're wasting your time taking these tests. Another thing is, if you don't have the experience now, you can take the test and get the experience after you pass test. Experience and education. The CILB will accept lawful acquired experience gained under the supervision of a contractor who at the time was properly licensed in the category or category which encompasses the scope of practice in which the application is seeking licensure. Another thing that I hear all the time from people is, oh, you have to get a GC to sign off on you, or you have to get a contractor to sign off on you when you're applying. No one has to sign off for you to get your license. You can apply and you don't even have to tell the people that you're applying for the license. Commercial experience must be in 4 or more of the following areas. Right here, this is for a general contractor. If you're applying to be a general contractor, this is all the qualifications you have to meet and the experience you have to have. And this is a residential contractor. You have to have all of this experience as well. I don't know why they don't have a building contractor in here. Just weird. So a swimming pool contractor, a minimum of 2,000 person hours is used for purpose of determining full-time equivalency. Certified electric alarm system contractor, have within the 12 years prior to filing the application at least 6 years of comprehensive specialized training, education, or supervisor experience in the alarm system contracting business, or at least 6 years of technical experience in electrical or alarm system work with the armed forces or governmental entity. 212, licensure of members of the armed forces and their spouses. Fees. This is going to be on your test for sure, so make sure you pay attention to this. Medical gas certification, and make sure to read the question twice. Look over the question and understand the question, because they will try to trick you. A plumbing contractor who wishes to engage, read all of this. The contractor has to take 6 hours of continued education. A person who is employed must take an 8 hours course. So they might ask you, an employee that works for a plumbing contractor for medical gas certification, and you just go here and you're like, oh, it's 6 hours right here. But that 6 hours is for the contractor, and it's actually 8 hours for the employee. So make sure to have this. Application moral character, criminal history, crime more than 5 years, may not be grounds for denial, do not relate to the practice of contracting or the ability to practice contracting, include, right here, other licensing requirements, financial responsibility requirements, net worth reporting, evidence of financial responsibility, credit and business reputation, the financial stability ground, FICO derived of 660 or higher and must be payable in the amount of 50% of the financial stability bond or letter of credit requirements may be met by completion of a 14-hour financial responsibility course approved by the board. $10,000 for an unlimited electrical and alarm contractor, and $5,000 for a specific contractor. This is important right here. Make sure you have this highlighted. You might even want to put a tab on it. They're for sure going to ask a question about this. Public liability insurance. Public liability and property damages insurance in the following minimum amounts. So they might ask you, what is the minimum liability insurance a general contractor must have? It's $300,000. Or they might ask, what is the minimum property damage insurance a contractor, general contractor must have? $50,000.
So you must have this highlighted or tabbed. They will 100% ask a question on the test about this. Evidence of workers' compensation coverage. Notice of election to be exempt with the Division of Workers' Compensation of the Department of Labor and Employment Security. If approved, the exemption takes effect 31 days after filing and remains in effect until revoked and for a period of 2 years, whichever occurs sooner. Terms of license. Licensure as a certified or registered contract must be renewed every 2 years. Continuing education. They might ask a question about this as well. Each certified or registered contractor must complete at least 14 classroom or interactive distance learning hours of continuing education every 2 years. One thing that you must note that is in the statutes, that they defined an hour as 50 minutes. Once again, they defined an hour as 50 minutes. Then 12 months prior to the end of a biennial period is required to complete 7 hours of approved continuing education as a condition of the first renewal of the certificate or registration. Business records. They will ask this question as well. Contractor's license pursuant to Chapter 489. Florida statutes must maintain complete financial and business records kept in the regular course of business for the immediate preceding 3 years. You have to keep business records for 3 years. 218. This is important. Make sure you read through all of this and you understand all the items that are a license exemption from construction contracting. Read through all of this and understand all of this. They will 100% ask a question about this. They might ask you, do you need to have a license to install heating or air conditioning units that have a capacity no greater than, they might put 4 tons or 38,000 BTU. They might ask something like that. So you have to know all of this. So when you get a question about license exemption, you go right here to page 218 and 219, and you have the answers here. Subcontracting requirements. General contractors and certified underground and utility and excavation contractors may perform clearing and grubbing, grading, excavation, and other site work for a construction project. And it keeps going on here. That's the only one but I had this all highlighted, so these are all important as well. Electrical and alarm system contracting exemptions here too. Qualifying agents. So this is what I was talking about earlier. This is something you want to read through all of this. I'm not going to go through all of this. Pause the video to highlight all of this. This is very important to understand what a qualifying agent is. So right here, pause the video now so you can take these highlights. Here's another one. Independent contractor has the right to control or direct only the result of the work and not the means and methods of accomplishing the result. Independent contractor or employees have the right to control or direct only the result of work and not the means and methods of accomplishing the results. IRS common law test, behavioral, financial type of relationship, behavioral control, and employee. All the following are examples of types of instructions about how to do work. Ways to avoid having independent contractor treated as employees, being treated as an independent contractor. 1099 reflecting amounts earned if 600 or more. Don't ever pay bonuses to a person you treat as an independent contractor. Very important. Penalties for unlicensed activity. You will get questions about this. Any person who falsely holds himself or herself out to be a licensed contractor or who engages in contracting without first obtaining a license is guilty of a first-degree misdemeanor, and a second offense is a third-degree felony. Make sure to have this highlighted. Any contract entered into by a contractor not licensed pursuant to Part 1 or Part 2 of Chapter 489 Florida statutes is legally unenforceable. If you ever have flipped a house or done work on a house or anything, and you entered into a contract with someone, a handyman or any person, and they do not have a license, that contract you have with them will not hold up in court. That's what they're saying right here. So right here, it's saying that if you get hurt on a job, you're entitled to 3 times the actual damages sustained in costs and attorney fees if the contractor is neither certified by the state nor licensed to the laws of the city or county in which he or she does business. Change in licensing information. A business organization must inform the DPPR by mail of any changes in the information required to be submitted on the application for qualification of a business organization within 45 days following the change. This might be a question here. This was in Chapter 1, if you remember. License number must appear on building permits and advertisements. Registration or certification number on each building permit issued to him. In addition, a contractor's license number must appear in any advertisement concerning the contractor, including text or artwork on the contractor's vehicle. Grounds for disciplinary action against contractors. The licensing board may revoke, suspend, or deny the insurance or renew of a license to a contractor. And then it says right here the following acts. If you want to highlight that, I have that one and I have this one as well. Right here too. And then it's this as well. So make sure to pause the video, highlight those. So now we're getting into the statutes. I am not going to read all of these. It's a lot. So make sure if you want this to pause the video to get exactly this. I'm going to go over the ones that I saw on my test really quickly. But this is something very important. Make sure you understand and learn these statutes because they are going to ask questions from these statutes. So once again, make sure to pause the video and highlight what I do have highlighted. So right here is a penalty for theft of reproduction of any examination. Right here, a felony of the 3rd degree. And then right here it says, continue education providers. Each continue education provider shall retain all records relating to a licensee's completion of continue education course for at least 4 years after completion of the course. Right here, authority to issue citation. However, if the subject does not dispute the matter in the citation with the department within 30 days after the citation is served, the citation becomes a final order and constitutes discipline. Right here, unlicensed activities, fees, dispositions. Therefore, the department shall impose upon initial licensure and each subsequent renewal a special fee for $5 per license to fund efforts to combat unlicensed activity.
right here, renewal and cancellation notices. At least 90 days before the end of a licensure cycle, the department shall forward a notice. And right here, failure of a license to renew before the license expires shall cause the license to become delinquent and the license cycle following expiration. So I had this question on my test. They left out delinquent and had 4 options, and delinquent was the answer. Now we're in chapter 489. Right here, it's stating that any work under $2,500, you do not need a license. And it's pretty much saying if you just do multiple different contracts under $2,500 to do this, it's still against the law. Definitions, here's the definitions of what a board is: a department, a contractor, a general contractor, a building contractor, and a residential contractor. Right here, we already highlighted this. The board shall consist of 18 members. Fees, here's the fees for applying for a license, for the contractor's license. And this is kind of going over what we saw in the beginning of the chapter. Right there, that's what we saw, the medical gas certificate in a course of at least 6 hours. And then here it says 8 hours for the employee. And here's what I was talking about earlier, about the 14 classroom hours of at least 50 minutes of each continuing education course. That's what I was talking about earlier. Oops, sorry. Here's important. This is going over the advertisements of where you need to place your license number. For the purpose of this part, the term advertisement does not include business stationery or any promotional novelties such as balloons, pencils, trinkets, or articles of clothing. So you don't have to put your license on any of these items. So this is very important to have highlighted and underlined because they are for sure going to ask this on the test. This right here as well, emergency registration upon death of a contractor. Within 30 days after the death of the contractor, of his or her name and address, knowledge of the contract, and ability to complete it. Make sure to read this and understand this. And right here, responsibilities. The statutes of the qualifying agent shall cease upon the designation of the new primary qualified agents or 60 days after the satisfactory notice of termination. Within 60 days, all secondary qualifying agents for the business organization shall become primary qualifying. And right here, as soon as you receive money, applying for permits necessary to do work within 30 days and start the work within 90 days. This is penalties. Make sure you look at this as well. Make sure you guys like and subscribe down below. These videos take up a lot of time for me to edit, and I do this to make sure you guys pass this exam. And I have a WhatsApp group down below. Make sure to text the number in the description down below and I'll add you to the WhatsApp group. It's going to be other people that are in the process of taking the test, so they should be some help. This they're going to ask. This is the Florida Homeowners Construction Recovery Fund. Make sure to read all of this here. They are going to ask a question about that as well. I don't have anything highlighted here. Okay, this is chapter 61G 412. Civil penalty for violation of chapter 455. The penalty should be paid within 30 days of its imposition by order of the board. Failure to pay a fine, an annual percentage rate of 18%. The application and exemption fee right here. These are the fees you actually already paid to take the test. They should not, right here they say it again, they should not apply to balloons, pencil, pens, hat, articles of clothing, shirts, or other promotional novelty. This is when they're talking about your license number. This is qualifying another organization. The applicant seeking to qualify an additional business and organization must appear before the board unless the applicant otherwise qualifies for approval, and qualifying 3 more business organizations must appear before the board. Notification of changes. A certificate holder or a registrant shall notify the board office within 30 days of a change in name, style, or address from that which appears on the current certificate of registration, and shall notify the board office within 30 days after the qualifying person has ceased to be affiliated with the qualified business organization. And also here it states the public liability insurance again. So if you want to highlight that, you have 2 options to find it right here, and it keeps going there. Nothing. We're almost finished, guys. Penalties. This have tabbed. Make a little tab for this. They are for sure going to ask questions about this. Make sure to read over it, learn about it as well. And they have right here, it will say first offense or repeat offense. So understand that the first offense is here and the repeat offense is here, and this is the minimum and maximum of each. I had this on my test from there, a question from there. Citation authority, have this tabbed as well. They might ask you a question here. It's just page 217 to 2172. Let's see if I have anything else. Might not have anything else, but I'm still gonna go through it just in case if I do have something that you guys can get it. This book is so big and it really hurts your fingers when you're flipping through it because the pages are so thin. It's very cheap paper. Yeah, it looks like I don't have anything else in here. Looks like we're going straight into chapter 3. Okay guys, now we're in chapter 3, financial management. Whenever you get an accounting question on the test, I personally would go to chapter 3 if I didn't know if it was already in the accounting book. And when you study the accounting book good, you will know which questions will be in the accounting book and which ones will be in the contractor's manual. I would check both of them sometimes, or I just found it in the accounting book and I just move forward to another question. One thing I do like about this chapter 3 is page 105, and that is the glossary. So if I had any definition that was in the accounting and I didn't know what it was, I would come here to check what the definition meant. I have like fiscal year highlighted. So this is a very good thing to have tabbed so you can come here if you don't understand something. I don't have anything highlighted here or here as well, or here. And this is a long chapter, so I don't have anything highlighted on page 39. So I have here bookkeeping, the difference between bookkeeping and accounting. In this chapter, I'm not going to read over everything. I'm kind of already losing my voice from doing chapter 1 and chapter 2. So I'm just going to point out things that are important. 30 days to pay. Accounts owed to a supplier who has given you credit are called accounts payable. Very important to know what accounts payable is. And that's something, once again, if I was like, man, what does that mean? I would go here to the glossary and it's like, okay, accounts payable, money owed by the company for goods and services provided by its supplier. Easy. Balance sheet right here. Things owed are listed on the left and claims against things owned are listed on the right. Very important. So pretty much what they're doing is they're going over pretty much everything right here with these little examples. It's very important. I actually learned all of these and studied them as well. Things owned by the company are called assets. Claims by others are called liabilities. You probably already know that. And here's the equation. Assets equals liability plus equity. You got to know this. And you can just go page 312, if you get a question about that. Changes in equity. They are investments or withdrawals by the owner, earnings or losses by the company. Changes caused by withdrawals. Right here, revenues and then expenses. They're defined here. And once again, let's go to the glossary and see if we can find revenues. Expenses. Here's expenses here. So if you need to figure out what expenses means or what revenue means, right here, revenues. Little cheat sheet right there for the glossary. Keep going. Right here, stuff to highlight. Once again, I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to read what's important. Here they define what an accrual method is. The categories under assets, liabilities, equity, revenues, and expenses are called accounts. Debits refer to the left side of an account and credit refers to the right side of an account. Very important to know this. The act of increasing the account balance of the account that has a debit balance is called debiting, and this is crediting right here. And then it shows a summary of debt and credit theory. So it shows the example here of what you're doing. Right here. The reason for having a separate income statement is that it provides information on how the earning on the balance sheet were arrived at and over what period of time. The journal. Make sure to learn what the journal is. Let's see if it has journal here in the glossary if you get a question like that. right here, journal. So if you don't know what a journal is, go to the glossary. They don't have a glossary or like a definition section in the accounting book, so that's why I like this so much. A chart of accounts. The balance sheet, current and fixed assets, current and long-term liabilities and equity. So make sure to pause the video, get all of these highlights that I have. And all of these are in the glossary as well. So balance sheet, let's find balance sheet. Balance sheet right there. So it would be very smart to go through this glossary and read it a few times to understand what each word means. Income statement includes revenue, expenses, and income. Prepaid expenses are assets that have been paid for but which will become expenses over time. And here it shows an example of this. Prepaid insurance. These are all examples of each journal entry pretty much. This is important, the Mac, whatever you want to call it. And they will for sure ask you a question about this, but they have this in the accounting book and it's more simple. So when I do the accounting book, I will show it, but in the accounting book, it has a better like definition for it. But you can also come here as well. Real estate may now only be depreciated on a straight line basis. Here we go, more. Amortization, that's an important one. Here's right here, tab, for example, of a balance sheet. That's funny, I actually had this inside my testing room and I guess they didn't notice it when they were going through the books. After I took my test, I haven't touched this book. During my test, I actually had a tab in my book and I had to call her over to get it out because she told me, she's like, if there's more tabs in here, just call me over and I will take it out when you're in the test. But not all proctors will be that nice, I guess. So make sure that you look through your book before you go. Opening the books. So once again, if you go to glossary, it will probably have here, opening the books. Let's see. Right here, opening the books. So that glossary, once again, is a cheat sheet. Preferred stock, common stock, why and how. Accounts receivable, important to learn what accounts receivable is. I had a question about open invoices on my test and I just came here. And the section describes a method of accounting known as the open invoice method. Open invoice accounting keeps track of each individual invoice together, which each partial payment made against it. Suppliers for early payment of their invoices. This is the discount right here if they pay. That is in the accounting book, the discount amount, and they asked that on my test, and I think it's 2%. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's 2% if they pay early. The preparation of your employees' payroll include the following. So right here is vacation pay, determine an employee's deduction, SIT income, the FIT. Learn all of this information here. FUTA. Once again, pause the video and highlight all of these items. Methods for maximizing your business cash flow. I have all of these highlighted, so take a look at them, read them. And here's part 2. Type of capital, startup, working, expansion, startup capital. So let's see if they have startup capital in here. So if you have that question, they do not have startup capital here. So that's something you got to know where to go. Types of capital. Startup capital is the amount of money needed to get the business underway and should be enough to cover expenses for 3 months to a year, depending on the type of contracting business. Expansion. To qualify for expansion financing, some programs and financial institutions require that you have been in the business for at least 2 years, while 5 years is preferred. Principal, term, rate. Right here, I have a few highlighted. The estimating process will vary from contractor to contractor, and the method used is not important as long as it produces a good estimate without taking excessive time. Treat each contract as if it's its own separate construction company. Types of contracts. They will ask you a question about this too. They'll ask you, which contract provides reimbursement of defined costs incurred plus a fee for the contractor service? Cost plus contractor. Right here, here's the percentage of completion. And then they might ask you right here, which one is basis of direct labor costs at a fixed hourly rate, time and material contract. The percentage of completion, this goes more in depth in the accounting book. Completed contract method. Much preferable method for accounting. Overhead costs, direct labor, material, and performance bond premiums. Retainages, 10%, 5%. Overhead expenses. So here's like a cheat sheet. If they ask what an overhead expense is, you can come here and see if it's on this list. Here's the type of financial ratios. I didn't really come to this book for ratios. I went to my accounting book for all of my ratios. I'd never really studied this part of the book, if I'm being honest. I did more of it for the accounting book. Employee information. The employee is required to maintain records that contain certain specific information about each employee, and this is the information they must keep. That's also in a different part of the book. This is the highest level of financial statement, and it is called an audit. They might ask you, what is a CPA? Right here, Certified Public Accountants. And here's that glossary we talked about again. And revenue recognition accounting method for taxes, cash method, accrual basis, percentage of completion, completed contract method. So 4 basic methods are available to contractors. So they might ask you, what are the 4 available methods for contractors for tax purposes? And this is the 4. Under the data taken, but I will have a few things highlighted. If you're the prime contractor, you'll be responsible for posting a copy of the wage decision. I don't think I have a lot of things highlighted here. I remember they only had like 1 or 2 questions from here. And I think it's in another part of the contractor's book as well. Here's a few. Can't really see those highlights. Circle E. So I'm pretty sure that they won't ask questions from the circular E. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. You can check. I have a few things highlighted here. Keep all records, employment taxes for at least 4 years. We had that highlighted in the beginning of the chapter. File Form 941. If you timely deposit all taxes when due, you may file by May 10th, August 10th, November 10th, or February 10th, respectively. If you want the IRS to determine whether a worker is an employee, file Form SS8. You're required to get each employee's name and SSN and to enter them on Form W-2. You may make a payment with a timely filed Form 941 or Form 944 instead of depositing without incurring a penalty. Figuring FUTA tax. For 2021, the FUTA tax rate is 6%. The tax applies to the first $7,000 you pay to each employee as the wages during the year. The $7,000 is the federal wage base. Your state wage base may be different. And now we're going to get into chapter 4. So thank you guys so much for watching this video with me. And I will start doing chapter 4 now. Make sure to like and subscribe down below. Once again, I have a WhatsApp group chat. Make sure to text my number and I can add you to it. It's other people taking the test right now, so you could find a good study partner in there. Make sure to like and subscribe down below. Okay guys, we're getting into chapter 4. I just wanted to talk real quick. Today, I didn't really feel like recording a video. And that's when your discipline comes in, because you're going to have multiple days that you don't feel like studying. Today might be a day that you don't feel like studying, but you just got to keep in your mind, this is something you have to do. You got to have discipline when studying for these exams, because if you don't have the discipline, you're not going to do it. You're just going to keep being like, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it another day. Make sure to start today and put a schedule of when you will study and stick to that schedule. So let's get into chapter 4, risk management. This talks about insurance and bonds, but chapter 9 gets more into bonds. I did get a bunch of questions on this chapter, and I am going to have a practice question. I wrote down a practice question here. It's a math question. I'm going to go through it with you guys so you guys can get an example of the question that will be on the test. So I hope that will help a lot. And if you guys like that, comment it down below and I will do it in future chapters. So let's get into chapter 4. This chapter, I do have some highlights here on the table of contents. If you want to pause the video and highlight that. And right here. So most of this chapter, I would say I only have a quarter of it actually highlighted. The rest I didn't even use or didn't even look at it. So we're going to start with introduction to risk management. So there's 2 types of risk, speculative risk and pure risk. Make sure you know the difference between the two. Speculative risk, which can produce a loss, no loss, or a gain, and pure risk, which can produce only a loss or no loss. Exposures to loss are generally broken down into 4 categories. First is property, second is financial losses, third is liability losses. 4 is exposure to losses. The risk management process, and this just goes through the process from a pure risk standpoint, the process involves. Just read through that. I don't think I had any questions on the test from this. I think I did have a question asking what are the 2 risk, and it was speculative and pure. Okay, insurance. The Department of Professional Regulations through statute law requires that the contractor carry a specific amount of bodily injury and property damage insurance. Okay, so this goes back to chapter, I think this is chapter 2, where it tells you, let me pull it up just so you can see it, because that is not in chapter 4 actually. Right here, the public liability insurance, they're referencing right here, bodily injury and property damage insurance, right here. This is not in this chapter actually. So if you get a question on this specific thing, you have to go to chapter 2 licensing, just so you're aware. Property loss exposure. Losses due to damage or destruction of property of contractors include losses to owned real property, buildings, and business personnel property. Property insurance policy can be purchased on replacement cost or an actual cash value. Property insurance policies also may contain a co-insurance provision. Co-insurance provisions require that the buyer purchase an amount of insurance that reasonably reflects the value of the property insured. As an example, if the replacement cost of a building is $100,000 and the building which is insured for $60,000 with an 80% co-insurance clause suffers a $10,000 fire loss, the insurer will only pay $7,500 of loss. The building insurance required was $80,000, 80% of $100,000. Only 6/8 of the required limit of coverage was purchased, $60,000 and $80,000. The insurance pays 6/8 of the loss, $7,500 of the $10,000. The insured is penalized $2,500 for non-insuring to the required value. I think I had 2 questions on this exact thing on the test. So make sure you understand what they're saying right here and how you can calculate the math if they ask a question like this on the test. I had 2 questions on this on the test. Make sure you know how to do this. If you want me to make a video on how to do this exactly, let me know and I will do it. Property insurance may be purchased under one of the 3 causes of loss form: basic, broad form, and special perils. I might be saying that wrong. Don't quote me on that. The basic form only covers, and then read through all these, what the forms cover and stuff like that. So special form covers theft. And then here it goes into typical perils exclude under a special form policy are losses due to earthquake, flood, viruses, and wear and tear. The types of insurance policies generally available to contractors to protect the organization from property-related losses are as follow. Make sure to know this. Number 5 and number 7, very important. Installation floaters covering subcontractor materials on new construction job sites, well in transit or well stored at temporary locations. I had this on my test. But if you read here, builder's risk coverage. Most builder's risk policies cover the structure being constructed and may be extended to cover materials well in transit or at temporary storage facilities. They will try to trick you, so make sure to read the question carefully if they're asking for the general contractor or if they're asking for the subcontractor. So make sure to know. Flood insurance, crime exposure. Equipment breakdown insurance covers losses to certain type of equipment for sudden and accidental mechanical breakdown. Financial loss exposure. Business income insurance, often referred to as a business interruption insurance, is available to cover losses to property which cause a decrease in revenue or increase in expense. As an example, if a construction crane is damaged or destroyed, the organization could lose income in not having the crane available for rent or have an increase in expense if the organization has to rent a temporary replacement crane. So pretty much self-explanatory there. Business liability exposure. The commercial general liability policy provides protection to the organization for bodily injury and the property damage liability losses arising out of the property it owns or leases, activities after construction exposure, personal injury, and fire damage liability. The limits of liability under this policy are broken down as follows. Right there. Medical expense coverage provides for payment of medical bills for injured persons other than employees or your premises, or because of construction operations. The limit is usually $5,000 or $10,000, and the coverage will pay regardless of fault. I think I had this on my test right here, this exact one. Construction liability exposure, right here. Just go through that, highlight that. Insured contract means business automobile policy. Losses arising out of the operation of owned licensed motor vehicles. Hired autos, non-owned. Employment benefits liability coverage. I didn't have anything of that. Employment practice liability, discrimination. So if they ask you which insurance covers discrimination claims, it's the employment practices liability policy. Umbrella liability policy. Often a contractor will be required by contract or desire additional protection from liability claims beyond the policy limits available under commercial general liability and business automobile policies. The policy is in excess of the commercial general liability and business auto policy limits. Personal loss exposure. Organizations can also suffer financial loss due to death or disability of key personnel. Computation of premium rates. Premiums for property coverage, including builder's risk. Boom, boom, boom. Right here, important. A contractor should regularly, every 6 months or at least annually, review the driving records of his employees by ordering motor vehicle reports. Right there. So if they ask, a contractor should regularly blank review the driving record of his employees by ordering a motor vehicle reports every 6 months or at least annually. A suretyship is a promise by the surety guarantor to be answerable to the obligee for the debt of the principal contract. The liability of the surety is secondary to the principal. Make sure to understand what is a guarantor, what is the owner, and what is the contractor. Also, what is the surety, what is the obligee, and what is the principal. I studied this. I don't know why I could not put in my head what was the surety, what was the obligee, and what was the principal. I just looked at this so many times, and I highlighted it and underlined it just so I know this. Indemnity is a legal principle by which the party offering the guarantee surety will be identified, reimbursed by the contractor for lost damages incurred. The indemnity agreement is the legal document that is signed by all principals and their spouses prior to executing any bonds. Right here. So they might ask, who signs the indemnity agreement? Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. And it's signed by all principals and their spouses prior to executing any bonds. Insurance is a two-part agreement in which the insurer assumes the liability of the insured for loss arising out of an unforeseen contingency such as fire, accident, or death. Insurers expect losses and spread the risk over many insured. A surety bond is a three-party agreement. Who are the three parties? Right here. The surety, the guarantor, the obligee, the owner, and the principal, the contractor. So if the contractor fails on the surety bond, the surety, the guarantor, is the one that pays the obligee, the owner. And then the surety, the guarantor, will go after the contractor to get the money back they had to pay the owner. Just so you're aware. The surety is the one that's going to be suing the contractor. The owner doesn't have to deal with that. The owner's guaranteed the money because the guarantor is guaranteeing it. There you go. Right there. It says here, the surety does not contemplate a loss. Why do they not contemplate a loss? Because the surety is going to sue the contractor and get all of the money back that they had to pay the owner, the obligee. In 1894, Congress passed the Hurt Act in response to the concerns about the large number of contractors working on public projects that became insolvent, and in response to complaints from unpaid subcontractors, the Hurd Act was supplanted by the Miller Act in 1935, called the Little Miller Acts. Types of bonds. Make sure you learn and understand what types of bonds there are. There's 6 types of bonds, and this one explains what the bid bond is right here. So make sure to understand what each bond is. So we got the bid bond. We got the performance bond. So in the test, like this was the question that I got. It would be like and then it would have the blank, and then it would have the different bonds, 4 different bonds you can choose from. Guarantees the contract to perform the work according to the contract terms. That simple. And then you just go here and you put and the answer is performance bond. So you just read there. I did have another one that it was saying which bond guarantees the contract to perform the work according to the contract terms and guarantees the contract will pay all subcontractors, labor, materials, suppliers who have provided labor and material on the project. And it's right here, combined performance and payment bond. It was that simple. And then it was like, which bond guarantees the developer a lien-free project? It was a payment bond conditional. It's like it was pretty simple when I got a bond question because I knew just come to this page and it will be here. So maintenance bond, supply bond, who can provide bonds, insurance agents who represents insurance companies is who can provide bonds. This bond is limited to 10% of the capital. Underwriting the risk. So the 3 C's of underwriting, make sure you know these: characters, capacity, capital. So make sure you know the 3 C's. Default. If a contractor defaults, the surety has a few options. They might ask, I think I did have a question on this too. It was like, the contractor is defaulting, what options does the surety have? And these are the options that it has right here. Types of information requested by the surety: the last 3 year-end financial statements prepared by a CPA. And then it has more stuff. Right here, financial statements. Financial statements can be prepared under 3 methods: audit, review, or affiliation. Right there, and make sure you know what is each. Income recognition, completed contracts, pure accrual ratios. The rule of thumb is used to ballpark an allowable bond program. The contractor's net quick times a factor of 10 will be approximate. The program allowable by the surety net quick is cash accounts receivable plus cost in excess of billions and estimates earnings minus all current liabilities. I had a question on the test. It will give you what the contractor has. Like right here, it will say, as an example, if the contractor cash accounts are receivable and costs in excess of billings and estimate earnings totals 1,000. So it will say this contractor's has $1 million in cash, has $500 in account receivables, and has like $400,000 in costs and accessibility. And what is his net quick? So you would add that all together, and then if it has a liabilities, you would minus the liabilities, and you would, let's say, get 600,000, and then you times it by 10, and so his is 6 million. All right, debt to equity, contracts. What does a bond cost? May vary from 1% to 5% of the contract price. Okay, standard surety association rate for a Class B contract. Make sure to know where this is. Very, 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 very important right here. This is the question that I have that I'm going to do with you guys. Right here is the question. You are bidding on a general construction project with a contract price of $3.2 million using the standard surety association rate for a Class B, calculated the total bond premium. So right here is the standard surety association rate for a Class B contract. So you need a bond premium of $3.2 million right here. So for this, you have to start with 100. You just can't jump to $2.5 million. You have to go down the list until you hit $3.2 million. So the first 100,000 is rate per 1,000, 25. So I'm going to do 100,000 divided by 1,000 is 100 times 25. So I have 2,500 here. So I'm gonna write this down. Hopefully. Sorry for my bad handwriting. And now I have 100,000. So now I'm gonna do 400,000. So 400,000 divided by 1,000. Why am I dividing by 1,000? Because this rate is per 1,000. So 1,000 times 15. I got 6,000 here. So I'm up to 500,000 right now. And I still got to keep going until I hit the 3.2 mil. So now I'm going to do 2 million divided by 1,000 times 10 is 20,000. And now what I need, so I already did 2 million, I already did 2.5 million, right? All right, so let's minus 2.5 million minus 32 is 700,000. So I need 700,000 from the 2.5 million. So I'm doing 700,000 divided by 1,000 times 750 is $5,250. All right, now we're gonna add all this up. 2,500 plus 6,000 plus 20,000 plus 5,250. So this bond cost $33,750 right there. So a $3.2 million bond is going to cost you $33,750 right there. And then it says small business bond assistance right here. The program guarantees a portion 70,000 to 90% of the surety's risk for newly started minority or other disadvantaged contracts. The maximum single bond amount is 6.5 million. So they might ask you, what is the maximum single bond amount for a small business bond assistance? And it's 6.5 million. The SBA bond guarantee program charges the contractor a premium $7.29 per thousand. So that's it for chapter 4. I don't have anything else in here. I'll go through it just to show you guys I don't have anything underlined in here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any questions about what I did, if you have questions about this math, let me know down below and I can help you guys out with it. So I hope you guys like today's video. Once again, keep going. You guys will get there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Okay, guys, let's get into Chapter 5, Labor and Employment Laws and Regulations. Once again, if you guys want to be added to the WhatsApp group chat, the number is down below and in the pinned comments. Just message me and you'll be added to the group. So let's get into Chapter 5. I'm pretty sure this is the longest chapter in the entire book. The questions that I did have were math questions. I'll get into it when we get to there. It was pretty simple. What I had on the test, I just went to this part of the book. You just follow the steps and I was able to get the answer. I have highlighted here Labor Management Relations Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, exemptions, overtime pay requirements, record keeping, child labor regulation number 3. Unemployment benefits, penalties, sanctions, special issues related to the construction industry. And this one, I had questions from here, so make sure to have this highlighted, starred, everything. Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. Record keeping, the Fair Labor Standard Act, Florida Child Labor Law, Florida Reemployment Assistance Program Law, Employer Guide to Reemployment Tax, Employer Guide to Reemployment Assistance Benefits. All right, so let's get right into it. These ones are the labor and employment laws and regulations.
I just have these highlighted. Maybe just read through all of these and just highlight the name of each one. Here's another one. The age discrimination in employment, treating employees 40 years and older differently because of their age unless the employer can legally justify its actions. National Labor Relations Board, NLRB. So if they ask you what NLRB is, it's the National Labor Relation Board. Duty to bargain. Employers and unions have mutual obligations to bargain in good faith over wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment. Neither party is required to make particular proposals or concessions. The NLRB, acting through a member of regional offices, prosecutes unfair labor practices charges and conducts representation elections. If they ask you who is in the enforcement of unfair labor practice, it is the NLRB. Unfair labor practice charges and unfair labor practice charges ULP must be received by the regional office where the unfair labor practice is alleged to have occurred within 6 months of the alleged violation. Representation elections. In the construction industry, an employer can sign a bargaining agreement with the union without employees' majority support for the union. Coverage. Exceptions to coverage include employees who work in federal enclaves, such as military bases, and employees working for airline on railroads. Requirement prohibition. Florida is a right-to-work state. Specifically, the Florida Construction, in conjunction with the Florida statutes, prohibits collective bargaining agreements that require union membership as a condition of employment. Union shop agreements. An agreement whereby an employee is forced to join a union within 30 days of hire of the effective date of the agreement, whichever occurs last under penalty of discharge. Agency shop, maintenance of membership. So right here, the FLSA is federal statute which prescribes minimum wage of $7.25 per hour for non-overtime work. Overtime compensation at time and 1/2 the employee's regular rate. Test for exemption. Employees compensated on a salary of fee basis at a rate of not less than $15 per week. I don't have anything here. Nothing here. Okay, so this is important right here, this part right here. So let's go through this first. Each work week stands alone. Single work week as its standard and does not permit the averaging of hours over 2 or more weeks. Determining work week. Regular rate of pay. This is important right here. The regular rate of pay may be more than the federal statute minimum $7.25, but cannot be less. Right here, this footnote is important. Highlight it. Footnote 1. In Florida, as of January 1st, 2020, the rate is $8.65 per hour and will increase to $10 per hour on September 30th, 2027. The rate will increase every September 30th for the next 5 years until it reaches $15 per hour. Hourly rate employees. So right here, once again, this is important. You got to know how to do this math. So hourly rate employees, and then they're showing you how to get the overtime for it right here. So he makes $7.25. It's times 40 is $2.90. So his overtime rate is $10.88 times 6 hours, because he worked 6 hours of overtime, is $65.28. And then the $2.90, which is from here for his regular rate, plus the $65.28 for his 6 hours of overtime, he got $355.28 total. So when I had a question about overtime rate, I just went here and looked at their math and followed the same steps to get the same exact answer on the test. Another method that can be used, this is just another method that they're showing. Hourly rate and bonus. So here it's $7.25 per hour times $333.50. $333.50 calculated base plus $9.20 bonus is $342.70.
So now you got how much it is with the bonus. So then you have to divide for the 46 hours he worked, which his base pay with the bonus is $745. So then you would do $745 times 46 hours is $342.70. And then you would do that. The overtime rate times 6 is 223.38 because he did overtime as well. So yeah, right here, where does it say he did overtime? Oh, it's coming from this question. So he did overtime, it's 22.38. So it's right here, 34,270 with the bonus, with the $22.38 for the overtime rate. So he got $365.08. So when you give someone a bonus, it's just not that the nine, like right here, it's just not a $9.20 bonus. It's actually going towards their hourly rate, and then it will be multiplied. These are important. Make sure you understand these two. Employees paid on salary. I didn't have any questions from this, but make sure to know it. I didn't have anything from here either. I didn't have anything from here. Bonuses. A bonus need not be included in the regular rate if the employer retains discretion. Both. 1, that a bonus will be paid, and 2, that the amount is not determined until the end or near the end of the bonus period. Gifts, Christmas, and special occasion bonus. It may be excluded from the regular rate. So these ones, this is different from the hourly rate and bonus. So make sure to understand that. Pay for foregoing holidays and vacations. On-call pay, I have highlighted. Daytime pay may not be waived. Overtime must be paid after 40 hours a week. May not be waived by agreement between the employer and employees. I had this on the test. Record keeping. Super important. Employees are required by regulation to keep so-called hard records, such as payroll, employment, contracts, or agreements, and sales and purchase record for 3 years. All other required records, so-called soft records, must be kept for 2 years. Among other records, these would include time cards or time sheets. The following information must be recorded for each covered employee. Here you go, all that. Construction industry, child labor restrictions, type of work. Children aged 15 and under may not be employed in a number of occupations, including construction. Child aged 16 and 17 may work in construction-related operations, but may not be involved in certain particular hazardous occupations at a construction site. So this is the occupations that they cannot do. Labor laws, number 3. No minor under 18 years of age is permitted to work in any of the following occupations. Hours. Under the FLSA, minors who are 14 and 15 may not work outside school hours in various non-manufacturing, non-mining, non-hazardous jobs under the following conditions. No more than 3 hours on a school day and 18 hours in a school week. I had a question like this. They were asking like how many hours can a 14 and 15-year-old work on a school day? And it was no more than 3 hours on a school day and 18 hours in a school week. No more than 8 hours on a non-school day and 40 hours in a non-school week. No earlier than 7 a.m. and no later than 7 p.m. except from June through Labor Day, when evening hours are extended to 9 p.m. Just read through all of these items. These are pretty important. I had a question on a test about this. Enforcement penalties. Here's all the penalties. Make sure to highlight those. The Davis-Bacon related acts. Employers with contracts valued in excess of $2,000. Just read through that. Penalties, sanctions, alleged underpayment of wages. Debarment from government contracts for up to 3 years may also be imposed. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. All right. Covers all employers that employ 15 or more employees in each of 20 or more calendar weeks in the current or preceding year. Labor unions and employment agencies. Enforcement must be filed within 300 days of an event triggering prohibited discrimination. Right here. This is once again what I was saying in other videos is you're pretty much taking a law exam. You're not really taking an exam on construction. And they just want to make sure you know the law. So make sure to highlight these. The coverage. The FCRA. 15 or more employees for each workday in each of 20 or more calendar weeks in the current or preceding calendar year. Alcoholism is a protected handicap. All right. I didn't have anything from here, but just make sure to highlight it and know where this stuff is. I'm just going to flip through these and you can pause and highlight what I have. Once again, if I don't have something highlighted, does not mean it's not important. Okay, so enforcement. So this is enforcement for Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993. So the Secretary of Labor may investigate compliance and bring suits, or an employee may bring suit in state or federal court. Suits may not be brought late than 2 years after the violation unless the violation was willful, in which case the period is extended to 3 years. Federal Rehabilitation Act of 1973. An aggrieved party must file a complaint of disability discrimination with the OFCCP within 300 days of an alleged discrimination act. Okay, American with Disability Act. This one highlight employers with 15 or more employees for each workday in each of 20 or more calendar weeks in the current or preceding calendar year. So this is saying that you have to get coverage if you have 15 or more employees. A physical or a mental impairment, the substantially limits one or more of the major life activities of such an individual. That's defining what a disability is. Reasonable accommodation. An employee is not required to offer all possible reasonable and accommodations or even the most reasonable accommodations. Pre-employment medical examinations are prohibited. Make sure to have that. An employer can require post-offer but be pre-starting work medical examinations and condition of the offer on the results of the examination in order to do so. During employment, employee medical examinations are generally prohibited. Current users of illegal drugs are excluded from the protection of the ADA. AIDS, right here. You can just highlight these that I have highlighted. I don't remember any questions from these, but I did have that highlighted. The Employment and Training of Veterans Act. The act applies to government contracts and subcontractors with contracts worth $100,000 or more. 180 days of the alleged violation. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, this one's a good one. This might be on your test. I don't remember having it, but I remember people saying they had it. The Florida Clean Indoor Air Act. Penalties. Sanctions. An individual who violates the prohibitions against smoking is subject to a non-criminal fine of up to $100 for his first offense and up to $500 for each subsequent offense. Employee Polygraph Protection Act of 1988. I have those. Unemployment benefits. Make sure to read through this and highlight what I have. This one is a pretty important section, the unemployment benefits. right there. Just read through that. Okay. So, Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. So, if you have a question that is talking about Form I-9, the Form I-9 is the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. So, if you get an I-9 question, come here, and most likely the answer is here. Employment verification. Under IRCA, an employer must verify the identity of all new employees as well as the individual eligibility to work in the United States. In this regard, the employer must also complete an employment eligibility verification form I-9. The I-9 must be completed by the employer and the employees within 3 business days from the day the employer begins work. Right here is where I had the question. Once again, you get I-9 on the test. You're coming right here to the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. That's why I had this highlighted here. Where is it? What page, right? Boom, immigration right here, I-9. And if you go, let's go into the index and see if we can find I-9 in here under forms. No, it's not here. So let's look at immigration. Nope, it's not here. So the only way to get to it is if you actually know it. So let's see if it's under labor. Labor laws. No, it's not under there. So this is one of them that you have to know where it is and go exactly to where it is. Okay, so right here, what I was saying, I had this on my test, 100% guaranteed. The I-9 must be kept for all current employees throughout their employment. For terminated employees, the I-9 must be retained by the employer for 3 years after the date of hire or 1 year after the date that the individual no longer works for the employer, whichever is the later date. So I had a question that was like, this person was hired this date and they left this date. How long do you have to keep the I-9 for? And it was just 3 years, luckily. And then the penalties, these, I don't remember seeing any of these. Florida law, don't remember any of that. And through here, you just have child labor. I don't think I have a lot of things highlighted, but let's find out. We'll go through it together. Yeah, it doesn't look like I have anything. Once again, if you guys want to be added to the WhatsApp group, the number's down below. Just text it and you'll be added into the group. It's other people taking the test, so you can find a study buddy and get this thing passed. Okay. All right, I have this one, exempt and non-exempt work, 541.702. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember going through this on the test. I didn't even study any of this, to be honest. I don't think it's nothing you have to worry about. But once again, they can ask you anything from the test. But I wouldn't spend a lot of my time studying any of this stuff. Once again, it's more of like, these are the main laws, and they kind of recap it in the beginning of the chapter, so you don't have to read through all of this. But they put that in there just to make sure you have it. Yeah, I don't have anything in here. Keep going. Let's see if something pops up. I don't think so. Comment down below what you guys are having the hardest time with, and I can probably make a video and go over it. So now we're at what employers need to know about reemployment tax. I actually went to this when I was on the test. It's pretty good. Who pays for reemployment assistance? You, the employer, pay for reemployment assistance through a tax managed by the Florida Department of Revenue. So they might ask you on the test, it will say like Michael made $5,000. And how much does Michael need to pay in reemployment assistance? And it will say like $1,000, $200, $300, or $0. And it's a trick question because the employer pay for the reemployment assistance. So the answer would be $0. So that's something that might pop up on the test. And boom, boom, boom. Employment not covered. This is cool to know. Highlight that right here. Oh, this is a good one that I had. It was asking me what in a specific form was, and I could not figure out what it was. And it was I think it was an RT 5 or RT 6, and it was asking like when you had to file it. And I was like, man, where is this? I couldn't find it. And I finally flipped through and I found it on one of these pages. Let me see if I can find it. You must file your employer's RT6, including any correction, and pay the tax electronically if you're an employer who employed 10 or more employees in any quarter during the preceding state fiscal year. So you have until July 1st and June 30th to pay it. The tax rate now for new employers is 2.7%. Businesses proceedings. Form RT6NF allows you to report out-of-state employment wages paid to employees who worked in another state and transferred to Florida. I think that was another question on my test on what is a form RT6NF. Okay, so this is important to go through, like right here. This is the like know these type of forms and when they have to be submitted, because once again they had it on my test. The maximum tax rate allowed by law is 5.4%. Like they could ask this, when is the RT20 mailed to employers? And then right here, mailed to each employer in December. That's a question they could ask you. Employer's Guide to Employer's Guide to Reemployment Tax. Right here. Employer or an independent contractor employment quarterly report, RT6, excuse me. Right here. This is a really good like cheat sheet. So make sure to have these highlighted and actually read through this and know this stuff. An employing unit is the person, limited liability company, partnership, corporation, or other legal entity for whom service is performed. That's an important, the employing unit. Employment not covered. Once again, highlight these, pause the video, and you can highlight them. Penalty for failure to file electronically. Correcting your report. New hiring or hires within 20 days of employment hire day. Tax rate. 5.4%, 2.7%. You probably already know that, have that memorized. Excess wage. So these are the glossaries. Once again, another cheat sheet. If you don't know a word that they're talking about, you can just come here and go to the glossary and find it. It's a short glossary, but it is here. Employer Guide to Reemployment Assistance Benefits. I have this. Monetary qualifications, and I have these highlighted. And that. An appeal must be filed within 20 days from mailing date of the termination. And then the tax rate right here. Initial tax rate 2.7%, standard tax rate 5.4%, and maximum tax rate 5.4%. So there you go. We finished chapter 5. Make sure you guys like and comment down below, and I'll see you guys in chapter 6 next, workers' compensation.
Congratulations, you're 50% through the highlighting guide for the Contractors Manual. You're taking that time. I think you're going to do great on this exam. If you have any questions about the Contractors Manual, you can message me on WhatsApp. And if you need more information, everything you need is in my course to pass this exam, and you have practice quizzes. You need practice quizzes to pass this exam. If you're not doing practice quizzes, you need to go buy one. If you don't want to join my course, I do sell practice quizzes just by themselves. There's over 10 quizzes in there that you can take. And there's also a simulator for the business and finance. So it will have the timer on there for 6 hours and 30 minutes, and there's 125 questions. And I have over 1,000 questions in there. So every time you take the exam, it's gonna be different questions for you. So that's the best way to study for you guys, is to take those practice quizzes as well. I highly recommend my course as well, link down below. And you're 50% through the video, so I wanna let you guys know, I'm gonna throw in a bonus offer for you guys. If you purchase the course, I will give 30 minutes of my time with you to study with you. If you use the link down below and you put in the code 50, and then in the notes when you're purchasing, put free 30 minutes with Cruz, and I will take 30 minutes with you, and I will go over anything you guys want to know for the test, so you guys are well prepared. A lot of people buy tutoring lessons with me. If you're just interested in doing tutoring with me, I do $60 an hour, and I'll go over anything you want so you're well prepared for the test. I highly recommend before you take the exam to do a 60-minute studying with me, and it helps out a lot. I do that with multiple people the day before they take the exam. We'll go over 60 minutes of important information, and when they go take the test the next day, they're well prepared and they know what they're doing on the test. So thank you guys so much for watching, and you guys are almost done with the highlighting guide. See you guys in the next video.
What's going on, guys? Today we're getting into chapter 6. Once again, if you guys want to join the business and finance group chat, it's in the comments, a phone number to text, and I'll add you. We already got over 10 people in the group, so it should be a help to you guys. So today, chapter 6, workers' compensation. You don't have to worry about this. There's pretty much no math in chapter 6. It has chapter 440 in it as well. That's pretty important, so we will go over that. It's a pretty long chapter. It's over 150 pages. So yeah, let's get right into it. Here's the table of contents. I have a few things highlighted if you guys want to pause and highlight it. These are pretty much my cheat sheets, the frequently asked questions. I use that a lot of the test. Let's get into page 6.5. When is workers' compensation coverage needed? The Florida's Workers' Compensation Act is applicable to any employer in the construction industry who employs one or more full or part-time employees. So in construction, every single one of your employees have to have workers' compensation. In a regular business, I think it's once you have 4 employees, that's when you need to get workers' compensation. Every contractor or subcontractor must, as a condition to receiving a building permit, show proof that workers' compensation has been secured. For all employees, provide a certificate of election to be exempt. Proof of workers' compensation coverage or a certificate of election to be exempt must be shown as a condition to the insurance or renewal of a certificate or registration of the contractor with the Construction Industry License Boards. Construction industry is defined. All right. The following activities are not construction jobs, as that term is used in the workers' compensation statute. So there's everything. Have that highlighted. general contractor must purchase workers' compensation for the employees of the subcontractor. It does not make any difference that the subcontractor is an independent contractor. If there is a contractor-subcontractor relationship, the general contractor must still purchase workers' compensation coverage for the employees of the subcontractor. A general contractor must obtain a certificate of insurance from the subcontractor showing evidence that the subcontractor maintained workers' compensation during construction. If a contractor becomes liable to pay workers' compensation benefits for the employees of the subcontractor, the contractor is entitled to recover from the subcontractor all benefits to the contractor is required to pay, plus interest, unless the contractor, by written contract, has agreed to purchase coverage. A subcontractor who knowingly present false information as the existence of coverage when in fact there is none commits a third-degree felony. Avoiding or diminishing the amount of the payment of any workers' compensation premiums to a carrier or self-insurance fund commits a felony of the third degree. Excluded agricultural labor for which no coverage is required. The seasonal work must be completed in less than 30 days provided such seasonal employment does not exceed 45 days in a calendar year. A sole proprietor or partnership in the construction industry, regardless of whether he's an independent contractor, is considered to be an employee. A sole proprietorship partner or officer or of a corporation who is actively engaging in the construction industry and who elects to be exempt from workers' compensation coverage may not recover workers' compensation benefits. The employee cannot be required to sign a statement that he will not seek to obtain workers' compensation benefits if injured on your job. An insurer must be required to offer a deductible to an employer of a credit investigation, applicable premium reduction percentage, miscellaneous values, self-insurance pools or funds, individual or freestanding self-insured. Individual employees may choose to insure themselves in section 440. Boom, boom, boom. I don't really see anything here. Failure to obtain workers' compensation coverage. The injured employee can require you to pay workers' compensation benefits individually or can sue you in civil court. The Florida Division of Workers' Compensation can close your business down if there is no coverage, whether or not an accident occurs. It is also a misdemeanor of the second degree, and you could lose your license. Before the accident occurs, a part of the safety program should include a drug-free workplace program. You should read through these, the employer responsibilities. The employer has a choice of physician for the injured worker. So that might be on your test. They might ask who has the choice for a physician, and it's the employer. An injured worker is not required to pay anything towards his medical bills. So one of the questions I had on my test was, how much does an employee have to pay for his medical bills when he was injured on the job? And it was 0. Because an injured worker is not required to pay anything towards his medical bills. Basically, the injured worker is entitled to 2/3 of his average weekly wage, which is, I think it's 60 something percent, 63, 67%, I'm not sure. It will say later on. The first 7 days of disability are not paid unless the injured worker is off work for more than 21 days. The maximum weekly benefit is set each January 1st, and the maximum for 2016 is $863. So this is important, not paid unless the injured worker is off work for more than 21 days. So if an injured worker was off work for 20 days, he's not getting anything. And the first 7 days are not paid that he was off. Very important. You will see that again. Should death occur, the employee beneficiaries are entitled up to $150,000 in death benefits plus $7,500 in funeral costs. I was in a class, funny story real quick. I was in a class and the teacher asked, how much is someone's life worth? And I was reading the book and I said I read it here, should death occur, the employee's beneficiaries are entitled up to $150,000. So I was like, I mean, a life is worth $150,000. That's what the contractor manual says, and you have to pay $7,500 for the funeral. Of course, that was messed up for me saying that. And his question was saying that a life isn't worth any dollar amount. But in my opinion, the contractor manual does say a life is worth $150,000. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Okay, responsibilities after the accident. There can possibly be a 25% reduction in the employee's workers' compensation benefits if an accident does in fact occur. The injured worker has 30 days in which to advise the employer of a fact that an accident occurred. So the injured worker has 30 days to advise the employer of the fact that an accident occurred. You'll see that again. Following the accident, within 7 days of knowledge of an accident, the employer must report to the carrier notice of injury on a specific form provided by the Division of Workers' Compensation. Failure to report this injury to the carrier may involve up to a $2,000 fine per occurrence. First aid cases requiring treatment on site that do not require medical treatment for which charges will be incurred and do not disable the employee for more than 7 days do not need to be reported. It should not be noted, however, that the accident has to be recorded on a notice of injury. If the case later meets the reporting requirements, the notice of injury must be filed within 7 days after employee has knowledge of the change status. The Florida Workers' Compensation Law also requires the reporting of an on-the-job injury accident resulting in death of an employee within 24 hours to the Division of Workers' Compensation Bureau. Employees must retain a copy of all information contained in the first report of accident, including the actual forms, for not less than 2 years and 6 months. Any violation of the reporting accidents can subject the employer to a penalty of up to $500. Return to work process. An employee is not required to return to work until so advised. Many times the physician advises the insurance provider, even the employer, of the return to work date, but not the employee. Therefore, a written verification of the employee of return to work must be made. Training and education, financial impact of workers' compensation on the contractor. Employees are classified by the types of jobs their employees perform and are manually rated per $100 of payroll. For example, roofers have a classification code of 5551 and pay, as of 2016, their premium at the rate of $18.60 per $100 of payroll. According, if the employer has a payroll of $100,000, his manual determined premium would be $18,600. Your compensation to other employees within your industry is known as the experience modification factor, experience mod. Frequency of your on-the-job accidents and the severity of those injuries over 3 years compared to the employers similar to you. Okay, I don't have anything here. I have this highlighted, but doesn't mean anything really. I mean, you can highlight it if you want to pause the video. Okay, frequently asked questions. This is awesome. This is where I would go to if I ever got a workers' compensation question. Most of the time the answers were here, or they were in the chapters that we just read, but mostly in here. So who needs workers' compensation cover? Once again, this said it in the beginning, construction employees who have one or more employees. And right here, that's what I was saying, non-construction employees who have 4 or more employees, including any non-exempt business owners. So you have to have, I guess, more than 4 employees to get workers' compensation. So if you have 3 or 4 employees, you don't have to have workers' comp. And then agriculture, when there are 6 regular employees, we read about that there. So go through all of these, read through this, frequently asked questions. It's really good. What should an out-of-state employer know about Florida's coverage requirements? This is really good information here. Does the injured worker pay any part of my workers' compensation insurance premium? It is the employee's responsibility to pay the entire premium for workers' compensation insurance coverage. A question that I got on the exam was asking how much money does the employer need to take out of the paycheck for taxes and stuff like that. And they threw this in here. And the question was they were paying this amount of taxes and this amount in other things. And how much did they have to pay in workers' compensation? So they tried to trick me. And the question was 0 because the the employer is responsible for workers' compensation. Where do I get a supply of injury report forms that I'm required to complete when one of my employees is injuries? Your insurance carrier is required to provide you a supply of the form WC1, first report of injury or wellness. What kind of employee injuries are covered? What injuries are not covered? Compensation will not be paid in several other instances. Yeah, so read through that. Drug-free workplace, a 5% premium credit from your insurance carrier if you have a drug-free workplace. What if an employee refuses to take a drug test? Right there. And then how many days does the employee have to retest the specimen if he or she wishes to contest a positive test result during the 180-day period? That's for the drug-free workplace. Injured worker frequently asked question. Right here. This is everything for the worker side. When should my employer report the injury to the insurance company? 7 days after their knowledge. The insurance company must send you an informational brochure within 3 days. All right. Will I be paid if I lose time for work? Right there it says it again. You are not paid for the first 7 days of disability. However, if you lose time because your disability extends over 20 days, you may be paid for the first 7 days by the insurance company. How much will I be paid? Right here will be 66.23% of your average weekly wage. Your average weekly wage is calculated using wages earned 13 weeks prior to your injury, not counting the week in which you were injured. Right here, very important. Your average weekly wage is calculated using wages earned 13 weeks prior to your injury. When will I get my first check? You should receive the first check within 21 days after reporting your injury to your employer. If I'm only temporarily disabled, how long can I get the checks? You can receive temporary partial disability payments or a combination of the two benefits during the continuance of your disability for no more than a maximum of 104 weeks. What is the time limit for filing a petition for benefits? In general, there is a 2-year period to file a petition. Coverage requirements, construction industry, we went over this right here. Construction exemptions are valid for a period of 2 years until revocation is filed or until revoked by the division. Not anything here. Enforcement, job site inspection, stop work order. The penalty is equal to 2 times the amount the employer would have paid in manual premiums with the preceding 2-year period. Read through that. Fatality reporting, 24 hours. We already knew that. A lot of repetition in this chapter. So here is chapter 440. You should pause the video now to see what I have highlighted here. So let's get into it. Construction industry means for profit activities involving any building, clearing, filling, excavation, and then more. 20 days of such notice. Here, a certificate of election to be exempt, which is issued on or after January 1st, 2013, in accordance with this section, is valid for 2 years after the effective date stated thereon. 2 years from the issue date. Notice requirement, fewer than 4 employees. This is stuff we already went through. Coverage. If injury is caused by the knowing refusal of the employee to use a safety appliance or observe a safety rule required by statute or lawful adopted by the department and brought prior to the accident to the employee's knowledge, or if injury is caused by the knowing refusal of the employee to use a safety appliance provided by the employer, the compensation as provided in this chapter should be reduced by 25%. I think this is kind of ridiculous. Let me know what you guys think. If you tell someone, hey, you gotta wear glasses when you're using a saw and then he loses his eye, and it's like, man, I told you to wear glasses when you're using the saw, and you still gotta pay him. If an employer fails to secure compensation as required by this chapter, the department shall assess against the employers a penalty not to exceed $5,000 for each employee. There's the drug-free workplace again. This is drug-free workplace. An employer not having a drug testing program shall ensure that at least 60 days elapse between a general one-time notice to all employees that a drug testing program is being implemented and the beginning of actual drug testing. An employer having a drug testing program in place prior to July 1st, 1990 is not required to provide a 60-day notice period. Liquidated damages 30%. Okay, the department shall assess a penalty of $1,000 per day against an employer for each day that the employer conducts business operations that are in violation of stop work order. This is a stop work order, so if you get a stop work order question, this is usually a good place to go. Boom, boom, boom. This has like more penalties here. You just read through that, pause it. Compensation is not allowed for the first 7 days of the disability. Once again, we know that. If the injury results in more than 21 days of disability, compensation is allowed from the commencement of the disability. Once again, we know that. See, this chapter has a lot of, like, it's repetitive. Boom, medical records right here. The physician shall prescribe such care in writing. The employer or carrier shall not be responsible for such care until the prescription for attendant care is received by the employer and carrier. The carrier has the right to transfer the care of an injured employee from the attending healthcare provider if an independent medical examination determines that the employee is not making appropriate progress in recuperation. Oh, this is an important one. Upon the written request of the employee, the carrier shall give the employee the opportunity for one change of physician. See if there's anything else right here. Determination of pay. So once again, this is very important. They're going over it, the 13 weeks again. So read through this. Compensation for disability. There's the 66.67%. Once again, very repetitive in this chapter. Temporary total disability. Right here. There. If you want to pause and highlight those. Temporary partial disability. Subject to subsection 7, in case of temporary partial disability, compensation shall be equal to 80% of the difference between 80% of the employee's average weekly wage and the salary wages and other. There's the compensation for death again. It's the $150,000. However, upon the surviving spouse's remarriage, the spouse shall be entitled to a lump sum payment equal to 26 weeks of compensation at the rate of 50% of the average weekly wage. Right there, the children, the brothers, the sisters, surviving spouse. Notice of injury shall advise his or her employer of the injury within 30 days after the date of or initial manifestation of the injury. Right here, the 2 years for the filing petitions. We saw that. Carrier must pay the first installment of compensation for total disability or death benefits or deny compensability no later than 14th calendar day. Right there. Highlight that. I don't think there's anything left in here, but we'll go through it. Oh yeah, there is a few. if you want to pause and highlight that. It's stuff that we went over in the beginning of the chapter if you want to highlight it too. So you have multiple ways to pretty much find the answer. Anti-fraud reward program awards of up to $25,000 may be paid to persons providing information to the Department of Financial Services. Reemployment of injured worker. Once again, we went over this. The reemployment assessment within 30 days after the time such assessment is complete shall have 15 days after the date. Within 15 days of receipt of the assessment report or notice of the employee's election. All right, there we go. There's chapter 6. Once again, make sure you guys like and subscribe down below. And if you guys want to join the group chat, make sure to text me. Okay, guys, today we are getting into chapter 7, which is safety. This chapter, the most important thing is going to be OSHA. If you're going to become a GC or any other residential contractor, building contractor, and you're studying for the CM or PM, you probably have this book. This is the big OSHA book. This is kind of like a dip into OSHA, but this is like the legit OSHA book that you'll be studying when you take your CM or PM exam. So let's get into chapter 7. Right here, I have these highlighted if you want to pause it and go through my table of contents. And then I have these here too. So first page 7.5, I don't have anything highlighted. And 7.6, employer responsibility. The employer is generally responsible in 4 areas. The first area concerns record keeping requirements. So the 4 area is record keeping. And one important thing about this chapter is it's going to be a lot of, like, within 7 days, a lot of numbers. So make sure, what I like to do is, if it has a number of like a time frame, I like to underline it. I did that with my AA documents. Anything that had a amount of days that needed to be done, I would just underline the numbers. So here's record keeping. All employees with over 10 employees must maintain an OSHA 300-300A log. And the 4 areas is record keeping, construction standards, general duty clause, and display. You've probably seen on the construction job site an OSHA poster. OSHA posters must be posted on all job sites in an area where all employees can see them. So each job site you go to has to have an OSHA poster. Exempt employers. However, despite the broad coverage afforded by the Act, the regulations have excluded the following groups of employers. 1, religious establishment, employers of household workers, and 3, individuals who do not have employees. Employers regularly exempt from OSHA record keeping. Boom, boom, boom. You can read that. An employee who had no more than 10 employees. And then the OSHA record keeping 3 forms right here. These are the 3 forms. And then the log of occupational injuries and illness. The OSHA 300 log is summarized on the OSHA 300A. So try to know what form is for what form. Like the OSHA number 301. For every injury or illness entered on the log, it is necessary to record additional information on the supplementary record OSHA 301. The supplementary record describes how the accident occurred, lists the objects and substances involved in incidents, the nature of the injury or illness, and the parts of the body affected. Each employer should have available for inspection at each establishment within 7 work days after recovering information that the recordable case has occurred, a supplementary record for each occupational injury or illness for that establishment. Location, retention, and maintenance of records. This is the OSHA Form 300A. So if they ask you what a specific form is, you can go here. So your OSHA Form 300A is a summary of work-related injuries and illness. OSHA Form 300 is a log of work-related injuries and illness. And OSHA Form 301 is injury and illness incident report. Okay, location of records. And it has here everything you need to know. So injury and illness records must be kept for every physical location where operations are performed. Records for employees who report to a fixed location but work elsewhere should be kept at the place to which the employees report each day. Employees not associated with fixed establishment. Records for these employees should be located as followed. Records may be kept at the field office or mobile base of operations. Retention of OSHA records. The regulations require that the login summary and the supplementary record OSHA number 301 must be retained in each establishment for 5 calendar days following the end of the year to which they relate. And then whoever knowingly makes false statements is $10,000 fine. Recordable cases. Distinguishing between injuries and illness. All work-related illnesses must be recorded, which only those injuries which require medical treatment or involve loss of consciousness, restriction of work or motion, or transfer to another job are recordable. Injuries are caused by events in the work environment. A single incident involving exposure to chemicals is classified as an injury. Okay, deciding if work-related injuries are recordable. This is very important here to know if you're going to actually record it to OSHA or not. So which do not involve medical. I had a question like that. It asked if I needed to record this to OSHA, which do not involve medical treatment, loss of conscious, restriction of work or motion, or transfer to another job. Medical treatment. So read through these, all of these here, and then right here it says distinction between medical treatment and first aid. Right here, the definition of first aid treatment. And then injuries are not minor if. And then here, the following are generally considered medical treatment. All of these, admission to a hospital. The following are generally considered first aid treatments. The following procedures by itself is not considered medical treatment. If an employee loses consciousness as the result of a work-related injury, that case must be recorded no matter what type of treatment was provided. Restriction of work, motion, transfer to another job. Evaluating the extent of recordable cases, lost workday cases, injury and illness. And then when continuing the number of days away from work or days restricted work activity do not include the initial day of injury, you must count the number of calendar days the employee was unable to work as a result of the injury or illness, regardless of whether or not the employee was scheduled to work on those days. Reporting fatalities and multiple hospitalizations. If they ask you, how much time do you have to report a death to OSHA? And it's here, within 8 hours of learning of the death. And then within 24 hours of notification of an inpatient hospitalization. These are important right here. This is a star. They will ask this question. Additionally, within 24 hours of loss of an eye or amputation, OSHA must be notified. This part of the regulation concerns only access to OSHA injury and illness record. It provides that all OSHA records which are being kept for the 5-year retention period. Okay, if you got an OSHA citation, it must be displayed at or near the place of alleged violation for 3 days. And then OSHA civil penalties are here. And then maximum civil penalties are here as well. And then categories of violations. Serious violations will be categorized in the terms of severity, high, medium, or low, and the probability of an injury or illness occurring greater or lesser. Adjustment factors. The size of the adjustment factors as follows here. Okay, so this is a good one. This is a star here. They might ask you how many persons will be responsible and in charge of the safety program, and it's one person within a company must be responsible and in charge of the safety program. Management is responsible. They're going to ask who is responsible for training their employees. Federal Regulations 1926 to 1910 set of standards for the employee OSHA training. So who is responsible for this? It is management is responsible for this. Job site inspection right here, star right here. Daily inspections should be made by a supervisor, foreman, and safety personnel. Right there, star that too. And then here's all your definitions. And then here's our excavation, trenching, and shoring. I didn't have any questions from this. I did have a question right here, maximum allowable slopes. I did have a question from here, the rigging and safety. So if you get anything that has to do with rope or anything, just come here to page 747. So manila rope right here. Synthetic ropes are stronger than natural fiber ropes. Here, this is, I think this was on my test. It's the safety factor, and it says general rigging and hoisting of materials, a factor of 5 is acceptable. However, when the rope is to be used for hoisting or supporting personnel, a safety factor of 10 must be used. And here is the breaking strength factor of safety right here, the working load. For example, assume a rope rated at 1,800 pounds using a safety factor of 5. What is the safety? Working load, and it's 360. I didn't have anything from here. I had a question from here, and it was this rope right here. And it has the example of the math to do here. So you just have to follow exactly what they're doing. It's pretty that simple right here. Just follow that math. Didn't have anything here. Rope inspections. If they ask about rope inspections, come here. Right here, I have these highlighted. Don't remember that on the test. Shackles with crowns or pins worn more than 10% should be replaced and destroyed. That might be on the test. Here I have these highlighted. Pulleys. There. All right. Sling angles. If at possible, keeping sling angles greater than 45 degrees. Sling angles that approach 30 degrees are hazardous, and all angles below 30 degrees must be avoided. Then I have right there. All right. That's it for chapter 7. We'll get into chapter 8 now. Okay, let's get into chapter 8. Chapter 8 is a very short chapter. I believe it is the shortest chapter in the book, and you're mostly gonna go to your AIA documents when you get a contract question, but there is some that they will pull out of here. I don't think they're pulling that many questions out of this chapter, but it is good information in this chapter. I'll show you where I got a few questions from. So this is what I have highlighted for the index. If you want to pause and highlight that, and then here too. And then right here, what is a contract? There are several definitions. One that seems to best communicate the concept is mutual or of assent to particular duties or obligation, which is supported by consideration. Right here, 3 essential terms of a construction contract: quality, time, and price. written or oral. Read this. I had 2 questions on the test from this right here, written or oral. Oral construction contracts and subcontracts that are capable of being performed within 1 year are enforceable. Oral contracts for the purchase and sale of materials only of a value of less than $500 are enforceable. And then it says here, the law requires that certain agreements must be in written to be enforceable. In the construction setting, the following agreements must be in written to be enforceable. Here you go right here. So make sure to know this. An agreement that cannot be performed within 1 year of its making, an agreement to arbitrate, an agreement for the purchase of sales and goods having a value of more than $500. So make sure to know where this is exactly and to know what to do with it. Unlawful contracts. The law will not enforce a contract that has an unlawful purpose. In the construction setting, a couple examples of illegality or unlawful contracts are a contract not being licensed to perform the work undertaken. Fixed price contracts. Agrees to perform all the work described in the contract in return for payment of a stated price. Allowances. Budget number that is plugged in for the purpose of reaching an overall fixed price or budget, yet allows for a variation if the budgeted amount of the specific allowance item is or exceed or not all used. Allowances are very helpful for situations where materials quality, the quality of some work or materials, and then control of price fluctuations. Cost plus contracts. So I think it's, what chapter is it that goes over? I think it's risk management that also goes after contracts as well. Let me see. We can easily find this. Let's find it. So contracts, it's chapter 8 and then chapter 3, excuse me. In chapter 3, they go over this. I can show you. Chapter 3. Oh, let's look at the index. That'll be easier than having to go through. All right, so contracts. So if I want to see cost plus contract, it's not here, of course. Okay, let's see types of contracts. Types of contracts. See, 8.7. So it's leading here of the types of contracts. And then I can go to, where to go? 378. And it explains the same thing. Let's see. Yep, has the types of contracts as well. Cost plus contracts, and right here, cost plus contracts. Just to give you guys an example that sometimes there's 2 ways to find the answer in the book. So we got the cost plus contract, and then guaranteed maximum price, GMP. Make sure to know what GMP stands for. One contracting entity. Implied terms. The following are implied terms supplied by law if not otherwise addressed expressly in the agreement. Contract terms. So, express terms. A cost plus contract may or may not have a guaranteed maximum price. There. Retainage, typically 10%. Most of you guys probably already know that. And then the clauses are enforceable in Florida where they are clearly expressed. That's contingent payment or time of payment clauses. Liquidated damages. The parties may agree to a liquidated number of dollars per day to recoverable for delay that extend the date of substantial completion or final completion. A liquidated damage clause is enforceable unless it is a penalty. Waiver of consequential damages. Indemnity clause. Common law. Indemnity only applies if the innocent party is completely without blame. Under the law, a contract may be terminated for material breach. Notice of defect and opportunity to cure. Design defects. There is a Florida statute that provides that unless opted out by contract with respects to construction or design of defects, this is a right of any person who is considered being sued by an owner to receive a written notice of defects and have an opportunity to inspect and cure the alleged defect. Right here, statutes of limitations. So, to put an end to disputes in pursuit of the second purpose, there are statutes of limitation. The statutes of limitation for a written agreement in Florida is 5 years. Remember, if they ask you the statute of limitation for a written agreement in Florida, it's 5 years. 5 years. Okay, the statute, this I had on my test. The statute of limitation for an oral agreement for negligence or for other causes of action arising out of design or construction is 4 years. With respect to the 4-year statute of limitation, there's also a statute of response that relaxes the statute. The statute of repose, so extends the statute of limitation to 4 years when the defect is found or should have been found with the exercise of due care, but in the event no longer than 10 years from completion. An action to recover wages or overtime is limited to 2 years. Reasonable value of work performed. Punitive damages. Punitive damages are not recoverable for breach of contract. All right, there's chapter 8. Very short chapter. And we're going to get into chapter 9 now. All right, guys. Today we'll be getting into chapter 9. This is a really good chapter. One of my favorites. It's easy to navigate, and there's a lot of information. But this is kind of like the AIA documents and contracts. You're mostly looking for timestamps, like dates, when things need to be turned in, when you need to file stuff like that. So mostly if you get a question from this chapter, it's going to be how long do you have or on what day you need to file, stuff like that. Once again, if you guys want to be added to the WhatsApp group chat, we have over 20 members in the WhatsApp group chat. It's free. Just text the number down below in the comments and I will add you to the group. So a lot of people talking in there, talking about the exam. There's a few people that already passed, so it's really good. And I'm working on a course right now that I should be releasing probably before the end of, I'm hoping July, that will go over how to pass the entire business and finance exam. So look out for that. You might be watching this video later down the line and I already have it in the link in the description, so just check that out. So let's get in construction lien laws. So here's the table of contents. That's what I have highlighted there. Right there. All right, first page, I don't have anything highlighted. The second page, what is a construction lien? A construction lien is a claim or charge against real property and the improvements thereon to secure a debt incurred for the improvement of that property. The first element of a construction lien is a debt incurred to improve property. The second element of a construction lien is compliance with the procedures. Do I need a license? License of a lienier. I have right here. Failure to have the license renders the contract void from the start. No lien shall exist unless the professional contractor, subcontractor, or subcontractor has the required license. So if you are working without a license, you have no rights to be a lienier. Unless, I know if you're a laborer underneath a licensed contractor that you are entitled to it. There's like a few people that don't have license that are actually entitled to it. I'm not sure why it says this, but yeah. Special rules for residential construction warning required. An owner and a contractor. Following language, not less than 12 points capitalized, bold, face typed on the first page thereof. So that has to be on the contract. Okay. Property owned by married person. If the improved property is owned by one or both married persons and the contract with the direct contractor is signed by only one of the two, and the married couple is not separated and living apart, lien rights exist against the property. The only exception is if the non-signing spouse gives to the contractor and records in the clerk's office notice of his or her objection within 10 days of learning of the contract. Small direct contract exemptions is $2,500 or less. Then the only person who has lien rights is the contractor. An HVAC system is $7,500 or less. No notice of commencement is required. What is a notice of commencement? You got to know what the notice of commencement is. This is important right here. So just read through that right here. Duty to record and post notice of commencement. If there is no construction loan, then the owner has the duty to record the notice of commencement in the public records of the county where the real property is being improved before work on the real property begins, but not sooner than 90 days prior to starting work at the site. If there is a construction loan, the recording of the notice of commencement is the lender's duty. The owner is obligated to post a copy of the notice of commencement at the job site, regardless of who records the notice of commencement. So you see all the time for the notice of commencement, they'll usually just send a notary out to someone's house to sign it, the notice of commencement. Time to record notice of commencement. So right here I have this highlighted and underlined, so this is important. The notice of commencement is to be recorded before construction starts, but not sooner than 90 days before the construction starts. It stated that over here as well. Okay. Duty to keep notice of commencement effective during the entire job. The notice of commencement has a slot in paragraph 9 of the form for the expiration date. So let's see, slot paragraph 9. Expiration date, notice of commencement, right here so you can see it. That's what they're talking about. If no date is filled in, then the date is 1 year from the date the notice of commencement is recorded. A notice of commencement may be amended before it expires to extend the expiration date. So a question that you might get is, if the notice of commencement is expiring, do you have to file a new notice of commencement? No, you don't. You just have to amend it. So you just make a effective period. If there is no effective period placed in that paragraph, then the notice of commencement is effective for 1 year from the date of recording. If a notice of commencement approaches expiration and the job is ongoing, the owner should amend the notice of commencement. In the event that there are insufficient funds from the contract price to pay all valid liens, the liens attaching at the same time take priority as followed. So this is who gets paid first when a lien gets paid. The liens of laborers, liens of everyone else except the contractor, and lien of the contractor. So as the contractor, you have all the responsibility, you have all the liability, and you're going to be the last person to get paid. It's great, right? It's so good. A lienier is defined as, read this over a few times so you understand what is a lienier and if you are a lienier. So a contractor, a subcontractor, a subcontractor, a laborer, a material man or material supplier contracts to furnish materials to the owner, contractor, subcontractor, delivers directly to the site or sells for direct delivery to the site, or who makes specially manufactured materials specifically for the job, not readily usable elsewhere, performs no labor in the installation, or a professional lienier, architect, engineer, landscape architect, interior designer, or surveyor and mapper. The following list describes the proper lieniers. Right here, contractor or material supplier selling to the owner, subcontractor or material supplier selling to the contractor, subcontractor or material supplier selling to subcontractor, material supplier selling to subcontractor, laborer performing personal labor on the job for an owner, contractor, subcontractor, or subcontractor, professional lienier working for an owner, contractor, subcontractor, subcontractor, or other professional lieniers. So note that a material man selling to another material man is not a lienier. Note that a subcontractor is not a lienier. So if you got hired and you got hired from another subcontractor on the job, you have no lien rights. So maybe you should stop taking those jobs. I don't know. Okay, improvement to real property. Must I serve a notice to the owner? The construction lien law provides a form of notice to owner. A notice to owner must contain the information in the form set forth below and specifically must include the statutory warnings. The statutory form for the notice is printed below. It is very important to use a form. non-privity claimants must serve. Purpose of notice to owner. The notice to owner serves two purposes. It gives the sender of the notice the right to participate in payments from the owner after the owner received the notice, even though the sender of the notice to the owner does not have a contract directly with the owner. Okay, time, right here, what I was saying too. If you're not dealing directly with the owner must receive the notice to owner with a copy to every person in chain of contract between your customer and the owner not later than the earliest of the following times. 45 days from the lienier's first work at the site. And then it has the first delivery of materials. It's explained to each person. Prior to the time that the owner makes final payment in reliance upon a finals contractor's affidavit, even if sooner than 45 days from first work or delivery of materials by the lienier, or if you are a subcontractor, a material supplier, or a subcontractor, or a material supplier to a subcontractor, then prior to the time that the subcontractor above the lienier has been paid in full. Note that a non-privity claimant has no lien rights until he or she serves the notice to the owner. Right there. No lien rights until he or she serves the notice to the owner. If you are in privity of contract with the owner does not need to receive a notice that you are working on the real property. So what is a privity? Privity. In the lien law context, one often hears the legal term privity. This is short for privity of contract. What does it mean? Privity of contract has been defined as that connection or relationship which exists between two or more contracting parties. If A contracts with B and B contracts with C, there is a privity between A and B. And between B and C, there is no privity between A and C. Okay. The construction lien laws, actual delivery, common carrier delivery. Okay, releases through a time certain. This is the release that release all lien rights through date recited in the release. So this is when they pay off the lien, and then you can just issue a release. Release of specific sum. Hereby release its lien in the amount of, and then you put the amount. Claim of lien. This is very important as well. The claim of lien is the document that is recorded in the public record as notice to the world of the claim of the lienier against the property. The claim of lien were described in Florida Statute 713.08. Notice the following about the claim of lien form. So make sure to read through this, understand this. So this is the important part right here. The claim of lien must be recorded in the county, very specific. It says the county where the improved property is located, not later than 90 days from last work. In the case of someone working under a contractor who has been terminated, the lien must be recorded within 90 days of termination of the contractor, if sooner than 90 days from the last work. So they might ask you, where do you record the claim of lien? You record it with the county and 90 days from last work. Serve a copy of claim of lien on the owner. Claim of lien on the owner, not later than 15 days from recording. The owner can claim a defense to the extent the owner suffers damages due to failure to receive the copy of claim of lien within 15 days of recording. So I buy and sell houses, and I deal with rental properties all the time. And this stuff is so important. So if you're evicting someone from a house, you have to give them 60-day notice to leave the house. If you cannot prove that you sent that in 60 days, then you have no case. So these sending the 15 days from recording is actually very important. So it's stuff you need to know. A claim of lien is effective for 1 year from the date on which it is recorded. Okay. Extend the life of the lien. Claim of lien. The owner may shorten the time to enforce the claim of lien, recording a notice of contest of lien. Okay, if the lienier fails to file a lawsuit to enforce the lien within 60 days of the date, the clerk of court certifies in the notice of contest of lien that a copy was served on the lienier, lien rights are lost. Okay. Request from owner for a list of subs and suppliers. An owner may survey a written request to a contractor for a list of all subcontractors and suppliers who have contract with the contractor regarding the owner's project. The contractor must, within 10 days after receipt of the owner's written request, furnish to the property owner a list of the subcontractors and suppliers who have direct contract with the contractor as of the date the request is received by the contractor. Contractor's final payment affidavit. The statute says that the contractor must, in any event, give the owner a final contractor's affidavit not later than 5 days before the contract files suit to enforce the contractor's lien. Okay. Retaking materials. So if you install, once the materials have been installed, you cannot install them to take them back. Once a claim of lien has been recorded and resolved by a payment or settlement, the proper document to be given and recorded in the public records is a certification of lien. Okay, amount of lien transfer bonds. 100% of the lien amount plus interest at the legal rate for 3 years, plus the greater of 1,000 or 25% of the lien amount for costs and attorney fees. So this will be a math question for you guys. I will make a separate video, or this will be in the course on how to do the math on this exactly. So right here, once again, once the lien has been transferred to bond, the state circuit court, once again, they're telling you where this is going to be at, not the county court, may have exclusive jurisdiction over an action to seek payment on the lien transfer bond. The state circuit court has jurisdiction to increase the bond or lower the bond based on circumstances that would support an increase or lowering of the bond. What is a payment bond? There are 3 parties to a payment bond. There is an obligee, the principal, and surety. We already learned this, if you guys remember. I think, what chapter is that? I think it's chapter 3. Let me see. I think it's chapter 3 or 4. I'm drawing a blank right now. 2 other classes of persons that are directly affected by the payment bond. These are payment bond claimants. Type of bonds. Common law bonds are bonds that are not defined by any statute but are interpreted according to their terms under the common law. Okay, the Miller Act. Contractors on most federal public work projects are required by federal law to post payment and performance bonds. The federal law that requires that is called the Miller Act. Little Miller Act bonds. Contractors on public work construction projects for any state, county, municipal, or other public authority other than the Department of Transportation in excess of $200,000 are required to post payment and performance bonds. Let's see if I got anything else. Okay, here's chapter 713. Once again, they kind of summarize this chapter in the beginning of chapter 9. So we'll just go over it and see if I have highlighted. All right, liens for professional services I have with the direct contract. Right here, liens of persons not in privity, property, or payments. I mean, we notice the notice must be served before commencing or no later than 45 days after commencing to furnish his or her labor, services, or materials, but any event before the date of the owner's disbursement. Okay, once again, this was over there too. And determine the amounts for which liens between lieners, claimers under a direct contract shall be paid to the owner or allowed by the court within the total amount fixed by the direct contractor under the provisions of this section. The owner or court shall pay or allow such lieners in the following order. Once again, that was in the beginning. Yeah, the claim of lien shall be recorded in the clerk's office. Right here, the claim of lien shall be recorded in the clerk's office. Very important. Highlight that. Okay, notice of commencement. A notice of commencement must be recorded and posted on the job site before the first inspection. Underline that too. Okay, payment duration of lien. A lien provided by this part does not continue for a longer period than 1 year after the claim of a lien has been recorded or 1 year after the recording. Payment bond. Copy of the bond shall be attached to the notice of commencement when the notice of commencement is recorded. Okay. Remedies in case of fraud or collusion. Any person who willfully files a fraudulent lien as defined in this section commits a felony of the 3rd degree. Money received for personal property improvements, penalties for misapplication. Right here, they have all the amounts. You can just underline that. All right, there's chapter 9. We're going to get into chapter 10, project management, right now. Let's do it. All right, let's get started. Chapter 10, project management. Once again, if you guys want to be added to the group chat, we have over 20 members. It's all about the business and finance exam. You guys can help each other out. Maybe find a study buddy. You can just text the number down below and we'll add you to the group chat. And also, I will be making a course soon on how to pass the business and finance. The course might be available now. Just check the link in the description or the comments and it might be there. This will help you pass the business and finance exam, just the business and finance exam. And we'll go over everything in the books so you're ready to go take your test. So let's get into chapter 10. Chapter 10 is not that important really for the business and finance exam. If you're becoming a GC, this chapter is very important for your project management. I think I only got like 3 questions from this for business and finance. So it's not that important, but it's something we're going to go over and show you what could be on the exam. So right here's the table of contents I have. Right there. Okay. A flow chart of the estimates bid process is shown below. It's the flow chart right here. General clauses and condition. Notice to bidders, proposal, general contractors. Proposal is a form that is completed by the prime contractor or subcontractor as applicable and submitted at the specific time and place, and is the prime contractor / subcontractor's price for performing the work as specified. The proposal is the legal instrument that binds the prime contractor to the owner. Okay. General conditions. So definitions. These are all the definitions right here. Estimates. The analysis of the plans and specifications in an effort to determine the materials, labor, and cost necessary to provide the owner / prime contractor with the project they set forth in the contract documents include the applicable time schedule. Methods of estimating. You got the square footage method. You have detailed survey or piece method. You have the unit price method, approximate estimates, and then right here, type of estimates right here. All right. Material estimates. Material estimates are used as a basis for construction material procurement, and as such determine if sufficient materials are available to construct or complete a project. Long lead items. Long lead items are those which are not readily available through the normal purchasing system and require special attention by the estimator to ensure delivery at the required time. Factors affecting production. Equipment speed. This will be a question right here. Equipment speed will usually average 40 to 65% of speed limits, depending on factors such as the conditions of the road, number of intersections to be crossed, amount of traffic, and length of haul, type of materials, safety factors, the experience of the operators, the age and condition of equipment, completion time affects production, climate. Labor estimates, preliminary manpower estimates. A good preliminary should vary less than 15% from the detailed estimates. Detailed manpower estimates. Factors affecting production, weather conditions, the skill and experience, the time allocated for completion, the size of the crew, site accessibility, type of equipment available. All right, foreseen conditions right there. Okay, so right here, 1 man day equals 8 man hours of direct labor. Construction contracts. When a conflict, this is important right here. When a conflict exists in a contract, the specific provisions prevails over the general provisions. Once again, the specific provision prevails over the general provisions. The handwriting provision prevails over the type provision, and the type provision prevails over the printed provision. In the event there is an inconsistency where numbers are expressed in words and figures, the words govern. So it's like a check. Whatever the check says in the writing governs over the numbers. Source of standard industry informs include those type of contracts, competitive bidding, typically fixed price, second major, direct owner contract negotiations, lump sum cost plus guaranteed maximum price contract. The advantage to this form of contracting is that it puts the owner and contractor on the same team and encourages cost savings as well as value engineering by returning money to both the contractor and owner. Project administration. Responsibility for job progress typically relies with a project engineer or field superintendent. The project engineers or superintendent completes the job status report for each project each month, indicating the percentage completed by each major construction activity, basis for monthly requisition, and also the basis for the monthly calculation of estimated total job cost. Oops. Nothing. Okay. Did I miss one? No, we're good. Subcontractors. General contractors subcontract approximately 50% of the work. When you add to this the additional percentage of total cost represented by material purchase, 50 to 70% of the total job costs are generally included in the subcontract or purchase area. Okay, network analysis. So the only planning methods were those that had been developed for use in manufacturing. Critical path analysis, CPA, critical path method, CPM, and project evaluation and review technique, PERT, are represented of numerous titles. The basis of any of these approaches is the analysis of a network of events and activities. For this reason, the generic title covering the various systems is network analysis. Advantage of network analysis, make sure you know that, the advantages right here, and the disadvantages. So project planning, The planning steps most commonly followed in the industry are preliminary. Note the preliminary phase should identify between 10 and 15 activities key to major construction phases of the project. The activities identified should represent no more than 10% of the aggregated project work. Detailed. Micro activities should okay, this is important right here too. This one I remember. Micro activities should be between 3 and 15 days of duration. Right there. Once again, micro activities should be between 3 and 15 days of duration. I had this on my test too. The network construction. A network is used to represent any sequencing of priorities among the activities which constitute a project. This sequence is determined by two types of dependencies, hard and soft. Right there. I had this on the test. It was asking me I think it was asking me what hard was. I don't remember specifically. Project schedules. Right here, the project schedule should be formally reviewed and updated at least once every 30 days. Projects should be posted at least weekly. Short-term schedules. The short-term schedule is detailed explanation of the subsequent 2 weeks of construction activities. The short-term schedule also informs in-house staff and subcontractors of the intentions and gives them the required information to perform their duties to support the construction progress. The superintendent, the individual charged with coordination of the day-to-day activities, should take the primary role in developing the short-term schedule. Schedule activities for the 2 work periods shall be made. Change orders. And a change in the contractor's scope of work results in the issuance of a change order. Change and extra work can be initiated by the architect/owner. The representative or the contractor's request for change can be initiated by the subcontractor, vendor, or contractor. Back charge, preparation, and control. When a contractor has to perform extra work for a subcontractor or material vendor, it will proceed to recover the cost in the form of a back charge. Subcontractors. The following subcontractor documents should be submitted to and approved by the contractor prior to the subcontractor's commences its work. Insurance certificate, payment and performance bond, subcontractor agreement. All right, these are important, the Article B, C, and D. So in subcontractor defaults, if it is the responsibility of the project manager to notify a subcontractor and/or a vendor when it is in default of any provisions of the subcontractor's agreement, a standard subcontractor agreement could have the following notification clause: Article A, B, C, and D. Submission and shop drawings. The overall time frame work for receiving submissions is defined by the construction schedule and contract documents. I think I forgot to go over. I'm sorry. I didn't do this page, I think. I think I missed this page. Now, because I'm like, where's the CSI? I missed this page. I'm sorry. Let's go over it really quick. This is 10.6 and 10.7. So plans and specifications for project. The specifications for a project have to be interpreted as a legal document. In either case, the courts have held that the project specifications are the guiding documents and takes proceeding over the plans or other project documents. When differences between the plans and specifications are found, they should be addressed in a formal document called a request for information, RFI, architect/contractor. CSI formatting is the Construction Specification Institute. So CSI format, this method divides the specifications into 50 specific divisions and 49 technical divisions to provide a standard reference and filing numbers for bidding and contract forms as shown below. So they'll just ask you like what division is earthwork in, stuff like that. So make sure you know where the CSI format is because they will for sure ask you a question on this. I'm sorry I missed over this page and I'm getting to it now, but make sure you know where the CSI format is. All right, let's get back. Where was I? I think I went over that already. Yeah, we went over this. Back charge. Okay. Yeah, we went over this. Okay, job responsibilities. Go over all of this. Very important. Go over this. This is project manager. It lists all the job responsibilities. It has the project superintendent, the project engineer, and the project accountant. Has all of these, so make sure to go over that. And they have a little definitions area here. So if you don't know something, this is a little cheat sheet. They have the definitions here, right here. A lien, an encumbrance that usually makes real or personal property the security for payment of a debt or a discharge of an obligation. I didn't have anything on this. All right, emergency response plans. Every work site, including your company backlot, should have an emergency response plan. Training employees on what actions to take in case of an emergency, where to get help, and required notification. It is important that every person knows his or her role and limitations in an emergency. Okay. Cost of environmental non-compliance is $10,000 per day per violation. Hazardous waste management, record keeping resource. All right. Send a notification of all demolition projects, even if there is no AACM present in the structure, to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection at least 10 working days before beginning the demolition. FDEP has a notification form. Okay, wetlands. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is the permitting agency for the federal government. All right, there we go. Chapter 10 is done. Hope you guys liked the video. Once again, I have the group chat down below and the course is being created, so make sure to look out for that, or it could be already released right now. If you guys have any questions, just leave a comment down below, and I hope you guys like it. If you're watching the full video, congratulations. You went through all 10 chapters of the Contractor Manual. And now we're going to get into the Builder's Guide to Accounting and the AIA document. So I hope you guys like my videos. It takes a lot of time to do these videos and edit these videos. Liking down below and commenting down below helps me a lot. So see you guys in the next one. Peace.